Good afternoon, everyone. So here we come to the second panel of MI-CONCLAVE 2022. The topic for the panel is embracing the new age of work, hybrid workforces. The transition to a hybrid workplace became necessary during the pandemic, yet there still seemed to be demand for hybrid workspaces. This session will cover the impact of hybrid workforces and the challenges and opportunities that come with it. I want to introduce you to our moderator for this panel, Professor Shubhra Gaur. Dr. Shubhra Gaur has a PhD in psychology from University of Allahabad and a 29 years of research and teaching experience. She has been at MICA since 2001 and is currently the Orientation Program Chair and member of Faculty Recruitment Committee, Rural Immersion Committee, My Impact Committee, Gender Equality and Anti-Sexual Harassment Committee at the Institute. Her teaching areas are leadership, personal, interpersonal, group and organizational dynamics, creativity, stress management, cross-culture and gender issues at the workplace. I now humbly invite Shubhra ma'am to take over the stage and introduce our esteemed panelists.
Thank you. Am I heard on this? Yes? Thank you so much. Thank you, Nihir, and it's a privilege and honor to be sitting amongst an accomplished set of panel speakers. So here I am introducing, beginning here, Mr. Ashutosh Anshu.
Hello.
He's a science graduate from Allahabad University, my alma mater, so I'm even more pleased. And before acquiring his several qualifications in industrial relations, HRD and management in general. He is currently board director and CHRO, Hitachi India, head of Global Hub and HR Global Delivery, regional lead for diversity, equity and inclusion in India, and comes with a vast expertise for working with 3 decades of work experience with different companies, Murugappa Group, multinationals like Bridgestone and Denso among others, and has done a lot of projects in transformation and growth, change management and leadership development, advisor on several prestigious colleges and has been conferred several awards. So thank you, and
thank
with
you.
that.
Thanks.
The next is Ms. Komala Devi, and electronics and communications engineer. After that, MBA from KJ Somaiya in HR. Currently, Asia Pacific HR leader from SSG Business of Lenovo. Has 16 years of work experience with global brands like Deloitte and IBM. Skilled in various aspects of HR, performance management, etc. And is from Erode in Tamil Nadu. What's very interesting is that she likes to break stereotypes, and she's the first woman to work outside home in her family. And not only that, and winner of many awards. So India Economic Times HR Emerging Leader League, Business World HR 40 under 40, and thank you, Komal.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
And despite having fear of water, learned swimming at a young, learning swimming. So thank you.
At a young age of 39, which is
yes.
my current age.
And here we have Sandhyadeep Puri. She did her executive program from Cornell Johnson's Graduate School of Management, is a certified Marshall Goldsmith coach, Chief People's Officer at Sapphire Foods, Pizza Hut and KFC. So after lunch, I don't know how much it is appetizing, but I'm sure it is. Worked across variety of industries, ranging from manufacturing, media and entertainment, consulting, IT and retail. Also various geographies, Asia Pacific, Europe, North America, and on large scale change management projects. Thank you. Thank you. That sounds very And we have Mr. Roy Joseph. He is the regional director and board member of HONO. He did his schooling and college from St. Xavier's, Calcutta, and his management from XLRI with scholarship. So I'm a little intimidated with scholars.
Standards were lower that day, those days.
Okay. Began his career with Bata India and has been with other companies, multinationals like Unilever, British American Tobacco, etc. And is a certified change management OD specialist from the prestigious National Training Lab in US, avid sportsman and quizzer. So you all can actually, I'm sure you'll get invitations on that. And we can safely assume that behind your success is the contribution of your wife, Viji, and 3 children who are settled abroad. So thank you once again, all of you, thank you. And a big round of applause for all of them. So let me just share with you 2 pieces of data before we begin. So an Accenture survey of 9,000 employees showed that 83% employees prefer hybrid, but 65% gave it as an ideal choice. A Microsoft survey of 30,000 employees in 31 countries said something very interesting. 65% prefer, which is contrary to what the first one said, 65% prefer on-site with team, and 70% prefer flexible working options. So my first question, and I will just lay out the format and the sequence. So my first question to all of you is, how has post-pandemic changed the workforce? So we do hear contradictory things about hybrid and flexible and all that. So that's my first question to you all. How have things changed post-pandemic, and what is the topmost challenge according to you in your industry, or according to you, wherever you want to pick up from your multiple experiences across?
I think, am I audible? Voice works? Okay. So my experience, and which is what we were talking before a while back, that hybrid flexibility, working from home, on-site, off-site is very industry specific, and therefore to each his or her own, to each organization its own, right? There is no one formula, at least in my understanding, whether hybrid works, hybrid doesn't work. Your own research that you've pulled out suggests diametrically opposite views, and therefore each organization will have its own space within which it will want to bring about an element of hybrid work culture, an element of flexibility. I think more importantly, more than hybrid, it's flexibility that organizations would look at. And in my specific case, we run about 500 plus Pizza Hut and KFC across the country. Then we run about 100 in Sri Lanka and a couple of them in Maldives. And we realized when our stores were working from, our people were working from the stores, and they were in the line of fire, so to say, during COVID times, because they were interacting with a lot of people, and that was a big exposure to them. And when they were working from the stores, the question we put ourselves, the back end put itself, was that why should then we be working from our, it really wasn't comfort of home, but why should we be working from home? And therefore, from the day one when the government allowed, we got back into action in full swing, and we worked and we continue to work in full force. And therefore, I think what it's important and what it means to young kids sitting here is that each organization that they will go in will have its own requirements, and the beauty of it would be to adapt and accommodate and become a part of that larger organization, whether hybrid, whether online, whether off-site, whether on-site, whatever it is. Enjoy that, because coming together, interacting is what working is all about.
Thank you. Firstly, let me welcome you all to this post-lunch session. Any idea what a post-lunch session is called? No, it's called the graveyard session. And definitely for good reasons. Okay, I agree with what Sandhdeep had mentioned. And I go back to some experience of mine about almost 12 years ago when we started flirting with this idea of people working from home once a week. And believe me, it was a disaster because I was working in a brick and mortar company. Now, in the last couple of years when COVID first hit us, the entire thing of you had no other option but work from home. But guess what? If you are in, I was in the MRF, so we were making tires. Tires comes under essential services. So you had to run the factory. And take a moment away from the tire industry and you look at the pharmaceutical industry. Now you had no work from home from there because they had to manufacture medicines. That's the only way you and I could survive. So when we talk about work from home, yes, the last couple of years has fundamentally changed the way people look at how do they work, what do they want, and where do they live. And that has been the origin of hybrid. But primarily this could always be possible in an industry where you could sit at home and do work by yourself, where you did not need supervision, where you did not need to work very closely and collaboratively with others, where your input was not necessarily an input into someone else's work. So it helped in those sort of industries where none of this was really required. So the tech industry, IT industry, back office, it helped, but the rest, I'm not too sure whether you can really get into this, because what it has shown us, unless you learn that, okay, I sit at home, I can manufacture a tire. I don't know how I can do that. Or I sit at home and manufacture tablets that people require. Then, yes, work from home applies to the brick and mortar industry. Yes?
Yeah, so graveyard session, and yes, so the pressure is on us, but I wanted to turn the pressure on to you all as well. Taking cues from what Roy just mentioned, the definition of essential services, right, at the time of COVID, what are the thoughts that you all have in mind? He spoke of medicines, he spoke of a couple of more. What others are essential services? Grocery, Wi-Fi, digital, yeah. So maybe he heard my introduction right, and so from Lenovo and hence, so laptops too had to be manufactured, and though COVID was such a depressing event, I think this particular industry that I belonged to at that point of time was pulled into the thick of the things, and suddenly a very important demand for this particular item, the laptop and tablets, which made our manufacturing teams to definitely plunge in and then take action. I also used to support another team called the services. Again, during the period of COVID is when all of the laptops which required services had to be taken for repair, rehab and all of it too. So keeping this aside, I also wanted to share some experience from my personal life. There was this time in my career when I needed to take a break because I was expecting my second child, and also my mom was suffering with a terminal disease. So I decided to take a break, but then I was at that point of time offered another role in Deloitte Consulting by my mentor, which seemed like such a very, very big act, for which I was very grateful to even till this date. So I used to be a HR professional who waited for days of work from home to come into my life. But fast forward into COVID, when the things went astray, I again saw that same phenomenon coming into action. But right now, because she introduced about me with the fun fact that I'm learning swimming as well. So I had a knee injury, and I actually need to go for a knee replacement very soon. So can I imagine a situation where my doctor is saying that I can do my arthroscopic surgery while he's working from home? Absolutely not. I cannot even imagine that. So that's when, as an individual and as a HR professional, I got introduced to this concept, and I believe that it's also very personal to me. I believe that HR is the conscience keeper of any organization. So I believe that we need to take the best of both the worlds. And there comes the concept of the hybrid workplace. And I think we're also lucky to be in times where there's this concept called hybrid which is evolving, but like both my other fellow panelists said, it is an evolving concept. We'll have to see how it fits into the industry and how we can embrace it. But technology is definitely an accelerator, and I think we'll talk more as we get going.
Thanks. So adding to that, I think most of the thing has already been told, but let me give an exact example. Hitachi is a Japanese company, and Japanese are known for what? Can you tell me? So timeliness, quality and all. And it was very difficult for me to bring the concept of a remote working in the company where we say, okay, employee can work from home. There was no acceptability kind of thing, I will say. But suddenly pandemic gave me an opportunity. So that pandemic situation has changed the mindset of the people in the organization. Yes, some remote working is possible. Again, whether it fits into our organization or not, it is a different matter altogether. But possibility is there. And then again, people are thinking how it is possible, whether work from home is there, work from office is there, flexible working is there, hybrid working is there. If hybrid is there, whether option should be with the employees or with the manager. So it all depends what kind of requirement, and main thing in my opinion, what kind of working we are into, we need to create a value for the business. And each individual has to create the value. If individuals are creating the value from working from home also, of course, if it is possible, then we should do that. So in my opinion, value creation is one of the very important thing which every individual should keep in mind while working from home or office. Even if you are going to office and doing nothing, it don't create any value. So that is the most important thing. But yes, the possibility mindset has started with the pandemic.
Thank you. Thank you for setting the tone about, in fact, that makes me wonder whether we actually, and especially the topic, embracing the hybrid. So is it really hybrid, or is it some other kind of workforce pattern that's emerging? But that we'll touch upon later. Please, throw some light on what has been your experience of managing this, managing the whole aspect of bringing people from home to offices. And what was the challenge and how did you overcome it? So each one of you, maybe we can begin.
Sure.
This side.
I could start. At Lenovo, we have a 4C HR operating model. So it starts with capacity. Capacity is nothing but your workforce planning, compensation and benefits. The third element is capability. How do you nurture talent, learning and development opportunities? And the fourth one, which according to me the most important one, is culture. So with remote working, it was very, very challenging to collaborate as an organization together, and we were trying our best. For instance, the engine that fuels our entire culture initiatives, we have a culture committee in place, which is incidentally slightly different in my organization, not filled in with HR folks, but business members. So business spearheaded by HR. So the culture committee was doing all of the well-being related actions during the COVID time. But then the entire journey around, say, innovation series, or how do you bring entrepreneurship at work, how do you maybe run programs like shadowing your business leader, all of these programs had come to a standstill. Instead, we were doing events like virtual coffee session with the leader and much more like that. Building the culture of the organization, or having a newcomer experience the DNA of that first day experience at office, those coffee conversations which maybe the seniors would take the juniors and tell them. I think all of that was absolutely missing, and we did our best. Of course, we used virtual modes to do those onboardings, etc. We evolved, but still nothing beats the face-to-face experiences. So that was the challenge that I would say with regards to a newcomer experiencing the culture of an organization, which was amiss. And in fact, I can also take snippets from what happened during lunch today. We had the seniors take us around the campus. So the passion with which they were showing the campus around, I think I would relate it to my organization, where the juniors who had joined our organization missed that. So they missed that living that experience moment. So that was the main challenge that I would call out.
Okay, so yes, it was a quite experience not only for employees but for us also as a management team, how to handle this situation. And we were keep on engaging employees, as you said, Kamala, that yes, engagement is one of the aspect what we keep on doing that, because mental health is very important at that time. Some of the bachelors who were living in the city alone, they were not interacting with anyone. Even the families, some of the family members are at the distant place, they are not living together. So engagement was one of the very critical at that time. Same time, the safety was one of the concern, and everybody has heard about the situation where medical facilities failure, or I will say that not full capability in the nation, it was not there. So organization, as an organization, we were also doing something for society, for employees and everybody. But at the same time, we were touching the nerves of the employees, what they are looking for. We did at least 7 or 8 surveys during this time, what kind of working you are looking for. And initially everybody said no work from office because the situation was not there. But till we came at the last year everybody was looking for, oh no, we want a flexible working situation. When we want to come to the office, yes, I will come to the office, but not full days. It is a kind of flexibility should be there, or you can say that new working norm should be there. And recently, just yesterday, we announced our new working policy where we have allowed that, okay, employees can work for 2-3 days in the office.
Why don't you take us through some of the important points there, because that's one of the biggest challenges.
Correct. So again, we said we are implementing this, but this is not a fixed policy. We will keep on learning from this, we will keep on evolving from this. Yes, let's start with this. Let's see what are the plus and minus from this, and we'll keep on evolving. Again, when some policy need to be changed around that, so we started internet allowance policy for the all employees, because internet is one of the essential. So, and not only internet, bandwidth should be there, because you need to have a lot of video meeting and all that things. So that kind of policy we started. We started a lot of health related policies where the employees are working and they are not communicating. So again, we are thinking on that, and depending upon the roles also, if some roles are mandatory to be there in the office, we decided, okay, these will be the roles, yes, continue to be there in the office.
You want to go? Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, I have a question for you guys, okay? You all are in the first year, right?
Most of them.
Mix.
Most of you all. And even those in the second year. How do you feel if your course was totally online and you didn't have to come to the campus? You like it? No. Is that a resounding no? I can't hear. I know lunch makes you very sluggish, but I still cannot hear. Fantastic. Because you would miss out all the experience of a campus, the legacies and the practices, and we got a wonderful campus, I must say. Now, when we went through the pandemic, frankly, none of us knew what hit us. We had never prepared for something like this. We didn't know what was hitting us. And I remember in the initial phase, down our road, say perhaps almost 800 meters down the road, someone got COVID. The entire road was blocked. That was a reaction to the entire scenario, because no one knew what to do. And as a company, I was working in MRF those days, as a company, we're a very paternalistic company. We take care of our employees. If an employee falls ill, we ensure that he or she is rushed to the hospital, his family is rushed to the hospital, etc., etc., etc. Now, you had a scenario where you didn't know whether someone was going to fall ill, and if they have fallen ill with COVID, how do you take care of them? You can't expect someone from any department. Normally HR and admin are the ones who run. I can't ask them to go, because their family members would not allow them to go. So one of the first things we did was to ensure that our touch with all the hospitals was strengthened. And we have a lot of coverage with all the hospitals. We take care of the entire medical expenses. So our touch with the entire hospitals in Chennai and other places was strengthened. Second, and more importantly, we said that how do we get to know if someone's fallen ill or someone needs something? So one of my team members came up with this idea, and we called it the calling tree. Calling tree. Very simple concept. So I, as the head of the function, I've got everyone mapped to the bottommost person. Now I will pass on a message to my direct reports, and they in turn will pass it on, and the last person within 6 hours has to call me back and tell me what the message was. It seems very simple, and it seems like we're playing a game. No, the reason why we did that was, if there is something which is going wrong, he has to reach out to his manager, and manager has to reach out to etc., and we have to get the information in 6 hours in order that we can start the system rolling, whether it is to reach out to the hospital, etc. We called it the calling tree because we didn't have any better name. But believe me, that helped a lot. Was it something that was thought through before the pandemic? No, it wasn't. It was just a necessity at that point in time, saying that how do we reach out to people? And frankly, that saved quite a few lives because we were able to take people at the right time, able to get the hospital to go to them very quickly. And if I look at the challenges, there were many more challenges. We didn't do any engagement activity. We have a lot of engagement activities. We have an annual sports day. 6 months before that, the indoor games, outdoor games, the competitions all start, culminating the sports day. All those things were off. All training was off, except training on the digital platform. We needed to get people up and running on the digital area. They needed to understand how to operate the laptop, how to get onto a Google team call, etc., because that was going to be the need of the hour. And this is something that we did in plenty. We said rest of it can stop. But we needed to be in touch with our factories because people had to come. And if people are unwell, we need to take care of that. So from a challenge perspective, this is what we did. Did we succeed fully? No, we did not succeed fully. And I'm quite honest enough to say that. But the fact is that there are a lot of things that we learned with those challenges which helped us sail through pretty well. Thank you.
Very true. I think very beautifully the three of my co-panelists have elaborated and elucidated. I see a couple of you sleeping there, the lady in white, the lady in green top. So, wake up, because what he mentioned, some of your previous batches didn't get this opportunity to interact and sleep while the panel was talking. So, I'll tell you something interesting related to this cohort, and maybe that may excite you. So every year we hire management trainees, and some years we've hired 100, the other years 50, other years 10, 20, depending on the needs. We have management trainees. So, and luckily for us, the restaurant industry, in terms of while gross margins were troubled, we still were doing, top line was decently well, and therefore we opened a lot of stores. We also made use of the fact that the real estate was relatively cheaper, so you could have better deals, better stores coming up. So we opened and expanded massively. And therefore we hired more management trainees in last 2 years than we had ever done in history of Sapphire, right?
Wow.
So what had happened was that I said, chalo, management trainees hire karte hain, so kaise karenge, online karte hain. Then strangely I was sitting with my HR team, I said, ma'am, aisa karte hain, let us not touch 2019, 20, 21 batches. I said, why? They are COVID batches. COVID batches? What do you mean by COVID batches? They've all studied me, they've all slept at home, ma'am, and I know my brother was, half of them were so vociferous, they're all COVID batches, we can't hire them because the moment we hire them, they're going to be good for nothing, right? And that was a lot of that sentiment. I heard a lot of HR leaders talk about it, that's a COVID batch, became like a taboo. So you guys are lucky that you've come out of that, the COVID batch syndrome, so make use of it. To cut a long story short, what we did for them, I said, then it's not being inclusive, right? at one hand you say I want people from diverse backgrounds. This is a workforce that has gone through a lot, suffered a lot. They bring a lot to the table, and therefore let's go and hire from this set of people. So we designed a lot of interventions for these people to acclimatize, because in their homes, and not again the comfort of their homes, in the trouble of their homes, when they were doing these classes, they really missed out on what it would be like to go and work in a corporate, which you guys get to see when you interact with us, when you have your internships, etc. You learn a lot. Those kids actually missed out, and therefore we created almost a crash course that they missed out in 2 years, 3 years, depending on which college we went to, and we gave them these nuggets over a period of 6 months so that they could come on boarded a little better prepared. So we tried there also to be as inclusive, as caring as possible. I think that's one thread that was very common throughout, and I'm sure you all would have experienced in your homes also. You would have seen your mothers do it, parents do it. Koi baat nahi, the maid has not come in, pay her for the entire month. Tell me how many of your parents paid your house helps for the entire month, even when they didn't come, right? So that element of care, I think, was so honed. That really was, I think, the best part of the pandemic to me. The being human was really not the brand being human, but really, being true to the humanity, I think, was the best learning for me.
I'm sure it will gel very well with them there. So our vision is to have empathetic leaders, and I'm sure there's a lot of empathy and care even before they come.
I'm sure.
And we build upon it. So what I hear from all of you is something very interesting, and it makes, I'm sure all of us wonder that the complexities and the challenges of designing policies and not only the value, creating value from the employee side, but also the aspect of fairness. So what if I'm working from home and I'm not traveling versus somebody who's traveling, the kind of time and I miss out on the collaboration and the culture building and the experience of culture and human interactions, which we have been alluding to, not bringing them up front, but actually they are at the the heart of everything that we're talking about, because work is not in isolation, right?
Absolutely.
So my question to you all is, what is your vision of this emerging workforce and the other side of it? So as employers, there is one perspective, but as employees, especially at their level, as youngsters will be entering, what are some of the things that they can keep in mind, which they will need to learn or relearn or pay attention to in order to be more effective, more productive in a complex, whether you call it flexible or hybrid or new age workforce, I leave that to all of you. But what are some of the competencies required in those skill sets, mindsets, if at all? So over to you.
Okay, so let me start on that. I think always keeping this in mind, what kind of scenario or what kind of situations we are in or we will be heading toward, you don't know what will happen tomorrow. So first thing, I think adaptability is one of the very important thing which everybody should have, whether it is a student or it is on a senior level, everybody should have adaptability to the new situation. I keep on telling to my employees that you cannot do today's work with yesterday's method and be in business tomorrow. Again, I am repeating, you cannot do today's work with yesterday's method and be in business tomorrow. So we need to change ourselves. Always change is the one thing which is constant. So always be ready for the change and enjoy the change. Don't be worried about the change, because change will come. What in the situation where we have worked and present generation is working, or where you will be working, it will be totally different. It can be totally different. So be ready for that. And again, I say that ask, ASK. A stands for attitude, S for skill, and K for knowledge. Ask is there. So A comes first, always. Attitude comes first. Skill and knowledge can be developed, but attitude is the first thing. Positive attitude, will do attitude. This is the very important in my opinion.
Sure. I was just taking notes of the ask framework too. Yeah. I'd answer that question slightly differently. I'll also go a little more into the issues that I grappled with, and then move on to how we approached the topic. So while I anticipated that during COVID, while we were working from home, a lot of the other labor compliance issues would be close to nil, I was very surprised. There was a uptake in the sexual harassment cases. There was uptake in cyberbullying. There was moonlighting matters. There were people who had taken up another job or started their own businesses on the side. So these were again matters that the human resources team was tasked to handle, and again very unique problems for us. Again, our extended workforce, which is our contingent workforce, are the contractors. How do we build in these social security benefits for them as well? You know, apart from what Mr. Roy was mentioning, the same support that we extended to our regular employees, we wanted to extend it to our extended workforce as well. So we were grappling with all of these issues. So now is the time again when we have all come back and we've been taking notes of how the industry is shifting post-pandemic. So it's a redefining of the workforce that had to happen, or reimagining future of work. It's a big process or a change management that I'm also still undergoing, but the manner in which in my organization we are looking at this entire topic is we are re-architecting the jobs itself. So like Mr. Ashutosh said, we would see which job fits where, whether it has to be done on premise or can be hybrid or can be done completely remote. So those re-architected job levels are created in the organization. With that, workplaces are also reimagined. No longer can a workplace consist of only a pantry, an entrance foyer and a cubicle, but we needed collaboration centers because you needed to collaborate with someone who would be possibly a remote worker while someone else would be an on-premise worker. So we had to do a lot of physical branding changes itself and visual branding changes in the office as well. And I think with the first two steps, if that's done right, then you can unleash employee experience in a much, much more better and a stronger way. But while we were doing this, again, we kept in mind some of the issues that I just outlined, like those rise in mental health issues or SH matters, and we redrafted some of our policies also to be more flexible to accommodate for those scenarios. So we did that as well and trained our internal complaints committee to accommodate for those scenarios, and that's how it's a work in progress. I wouldn't say we have arrived. We are still in the process of redefining our workplaces.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, you know, coming back to the question that Shubhra asked, that what do you expect these young kids to demonstrate in terms of competency sets and skill sets? I think, you know, there's a lot of talk about millennials and they don't want to work and they are, you know, they want money but a lot of rest. Do you think all that is true, boys and girls, since you are millennials?
No, they want to work for free.
Is that true?
See, they are awake. They are awake.
Okay, so my take has been is that human beings have remained more or less the same for years and centuries and forever. We take a great lot of pride in doing good work. I very rarely know of anyone who doesn't take pride in doing good piece of work. And therefore, I believe what drives young kids as well as old people like us is a lot of passion for what we bring to the table. And my ask of all of you, and Shubhra, what I expect colleges and institutions to build today is that passion in whatever they do. Whatever little that they do, whatever large that they do, bring entire self to that piece of work so that you can own it with a lot of pride, say, I did it, I had my say in it, I had my skin in it, and that really makes a transforming difference to what you bring to the organization. To be open to everything. I heard, you know, my friends say a lot about you know, being adaptable. Be open to everything and anything that comes. Don't try and do just strategy, don't try and do just creative, don't try and do just copy, don't try and do just what you think is should be done, because every work that you do, you can find purpose in it. The most important part is to be able to find that purpose of what you're bringing to the table. And that skill of finding that purpose so that your passion can be ignited is what I expect these young kids to demonstrate at work. I don't know what competency it falls under. I'm not a typical HR person, so I don't know the competency frameworks, but I know that if you're passionate about something, you will do your best. When you do your best, it adds value across the value chain of the organization.
No, thank you. That's all very, very useful and valuable. Over to the person who brings in the graveyard in the auditorium.
So
And also checks whether you're awake or not.
So I've tried my best to keep the graveyard alive. But Deep, I think that's very, very insightful what you've mentioned. To be honest, before coming here, I was a little nervous because you know, this is a youth and this is the future of India that I'm going to be speaking to. And when Deep mentioned, you know, old people, she meant only the two of us, not those three. They're pretty young. You know? So I did a bit of work, you know, apart from my own experiences, tried to do some reading because I said I must come and do some justice. And so hear me out, I may have to look at my notes which I have copiously made. And here I'm referring to as something like called sustainable well-being. What you're going to face is remote working, but remember in remote working there is blurred time boundaries, and therefore the need for work-life balance is going to be a lot more. Believe me, when we were doing work from home, you know, it would start at around 8:30 and would continue till about 8:39 at night. We had no respite. We had 10 factories, depots all over the country. Everyone had some issue. Everyone needed your time. Oftentimes lunch I would be having at 4 p.m. in the evening. So the blurred timelines, you know, and that's something which you people will go through when you start working. And let me also caution, COVID is not over. If you look at here the number of cases that are going up in China, it's also a cause for alarm. Emotional well-being of employees is going to take center stage, and each one of you is an employee. Remote working, therefore indefinite work times, Zoom fatigue. You haven't gone through that yet. But believe me, if you're on 8 hours of Zoom calls, you have a solid fatigue. At the end of it, I just could not sit and have a normal conversation. I'm sure you're assuming that I could have a normal conversation before that. Therefore, organizations need to embed a culture of sustainable impact on the well-being of employees. And those employees are you. So therefore, what is your role in that? You need to understand that these are things that you're going to be beset with, not be suddenly surprised with. So I've listed certain other areas. So if you look at learning and development, develop critical skills that will help to tap multiple opportunities rather than the next specific role. Believe me, in this sort of a pandemic, in this sort of a black swan event, you have all this planning, succession planning and career mapping, and we've got Dr. Seema Gupta here who does a lot of work around that. Believe me, all that will go for a 6. Because those roles which you thought will exist 5 years from down the line, for which you're preparing, may not exist. It's going to totally, so you need to, and I go back to what he mentioned, be adaptable. Develop your skills so you can tap multiple opportunities. Transition towards resilient organization designs. Post-COVID, more agile and adaptive cooperation, hence the need to have structures and roles that are resilient and flexible to deal with disruptive scenarios. And I will keep repeating the disruptive scenarios because every couple of years, be prepared to have disruptions. The sort of COVID disruption happens once in 100 years. I don't know what is, and no one can say what is in store. No one. It all seems hunky-dory. The stock market is going up. The football World Cup is going on. The T20 World Cup just ended. We are here with you. 6 months down the line, I can't tell. No one can tell. There will be a lot of strengthening of data security and monitoring tools. Every tool that you use, whether it's your laptop, whether it's your mobile phone, the data strengthening around that will be huge. So I know that you all are used to accessing a lot of things on your mobile phone and laptop. But remember, those are all going to be monitored. That's just a word of caution for each one of you. The current trends in business and technology indicate that the way employees work, where, when, why, and with whom will continue to change over the next decade. So what you see today on where, when, with why, and whom is going to change over the next decade or so, bearing little resemblance to the work as it stands today. So upskill and digital dexterity is going to be very high. Upskilling yourself and digital dexterity. Remember, there's only one mantra, and that's something I try to follow even till date. Remain contemporary, no matter what it means for you, no matter what you need to do for it. You have to remain contemporary. There's no other way. Let me ask you a question. Which profession, and all of you have come across that profession, needs to remain contemporary right through their work life, and they always do that? Which profession is that? Exactly, the doctors. If you want to be a good practitioner, especially if you're a postgrad with medicine with regard to either surgery or whatever, you need to update yourself every year. And their studies never end. You're entering the same world. The skills that you have acquired, the competencies, I wouldn't say, the skills that you have acquired, when you walk on the portals of this institute, it'll be valid for about a year and a half to two. It's not that it'll be totally obsolete, but there'll be new skills that you will need to learn. And if you don't do that, you will fall by the wayside. I don't want to be very, very negative about it, but I'm just trying to be cautious about it. Upskilling and digital dexterity will outweigh tenure and experience. Gone are the days when you say, and Larsen & Toubro is a fine example, someone's a lifetimer with Larsen & Toubro, 30 years, valued very highly. It's going to go. Employees will have to apply creativity, critical thinking, and constant digital upskilling to solve complex problems. This, in a nutshell, is what you are going to go through, what you need to be prepared. And I'm sure this institute has prepared you with that to enable you. These are all words of caution, that you enable yourself to remain contemporary right through your life.
So thank you all, but I'm like now confused.
Oh, we succeeded in me.
Yes, finally you succeeded.
Our intent is achieved.
Achieved. So I'm confused. Is the world so serious? Is the world that they are going to go into, and the world that we have kind of created for them, there's nothing fun about it? There's no happiness about it? There is only this word of caution and
No,
you know,
there is
constant
lot of
upskilling.
purpose, there is a lot of fun, there's a lot
spoke
of
of culture,
passion.
engagement.
Yeah,
So my
endless.
question to each one, or rather an observation from you about the real, fun in life, the happiness in life. What happens of that in the workplaces?
Can I take that answer?
Of
that
course.
question? Increasingly, many of you will want to retire at the age of 40 and say that, look, I want to change my passion. I want to go after this, I want to go after that. Increasingly, that's going to happen. You're going to be a lot of youngsters. It's not that you'll make millions of dollars and therefore you'll want to do that. No. You will find that the youngsters today are going to be moving after their passion. They'll want to go for experiences. And then many will say that I've had enough with a formal job. I want to drive my passion. I want to do what I really like to do, whether it's photography or whether it's acting or dancing or whatever. Doesn't matter. And that goes to the fun aspect, because, and when I was talking about the work-life balance, there's this entire thing of creating that balance in your life. Is not only work, but creating that balance by chasing your passion, doing things which you like, which gives you that energy to come to work tomorrow, which keeps you going, because that will probably give you an impetus to say, 40, I'm done with it. I want to now chase my passion. And I'm quite happy that I don't make the millions of dollars and have flats in South Mumbai, 2-3 flats, etc., etc., etc. So that's the other aspect of the fun element that you people will probably get into.
I'll give you my personal story, right? So I'm a mathematics honors graduate from Delhi University, and by the end of 3 years, I had done so much of numbers and so much of math that I said, no more, I will pick up a profession that is so far away from math that it won't touch me by a barge pole, right? So, well, then I landed in HR, happily so. And what was the first thing that my manager then as a project gave me? He said, convert the haze. So there is a concept called job evaluation, right? So that job evaluation is basically telling what is the value that each job brings. So it gives a numerical number. So numbers don't leave me. So he said, convert it into an Excel. Can you imagine? I said, this is a copyright material. He said, that may be copyright. You're not using it anywhere. Because you're so averse to numbers, I want you to convert Hayes, first understand the Hayes methodology, then you replicate it, and after you've replicated it, make it work on the computer. 1, I hated math. 2, I hated computers. 3, I hated my boss by the end of it. But trust me today, after 25 odd years of my first experience, I am so thankful to him that I thought I had enough of math, but I love it so much because I use it in every single thing, from chi-square to mean square, everything I use, ANOVA, every damn statistical tool that you can imagine, I get kicks out of it, right? So it's almost like an orgasmic pleasure that you get out of crunching those numbers now. But that was me 25 years back who hated numbers. So never give up on whatever you pick up, right? While you may want to explore your passions, but just remember that that passion, leaving something should not be because you want to run away from it, right? Leaving something should be because you want to go to something which is much more passionate. Don't run away because it will come back to you. So close that chapter in your lives, and therefore don't, this is a vested interest HR speaking, because I'm tired of people, youngsters leaving saying I'm opening my own wood store, I'm opening my own carpentry workshop, I'm tired of it. The young kids keep on doing that. Do that, but not because you run away from the rigmarole of this gives a lot of pleasure. Trust me, you just have to find your passion and purpose in that.
No, thank you. Very, very well said. Over the two of you.
Taking cues from what Roy and Deep said, so to me that resonates with the feeling that you're bringing your own identity to work. So increasingly in workplaces, it's to me, and the culture is defined by the identity of the organization. So as long as you're associating yourself with an organization that allows you to bring yourself just as the way you are, I think that's the fun quotient. That's the purpose of us, having a fun environment. So what I can tell you is an optimistic view that organizations are increasingly inclusive, and there is a very, very good safety net for the organization to absorb in all kinds of diverse minds that come on board. And so that's like a positive trend that I wanted to leave you all with. And with regards to some of the grappling challenges that I meant a little earlier on, like moonlighting, issues about an employee opening up another organization itself without even telling his current employer, I think on those notes, maybe you can think about it a little more. If you have a passion, if you had attended the morning session also, you can relate to that particular aspect. You could speak about it with your organization. Maybe do it over the weekends. If you are an amazing baker, take up a gig over the weekends. If you are an amazing speaker, you could always liaison with the organization and bring the best to the workplace as well, rather than going down a guilt trip and then doing it without the knowledge of the organization. So I think that's where the entire concept of innovation also is slightly different these days. Innovation is not necessarily all about R&D, bringing about a very, very unique product to the market. You may all agree with me, not all ideas are new. Sometimes the best ideas are also the copied ideas infused with your own personality and then remodeled, right? So innovation could be incremental as well. So depending on what your passion is, bring in those innovative incremental pieces of innovation to your manager's notice or to your organization's notice, and then live your life. So living your life completely is possible in the organizations and in today's time. That's the thought I wanted to leave you all with.
I will just say one line about that. Like I said, that now it is possible to work from home or hybrid or flexible things. So for you all, the world has become one platform. Now you can have a global opportunities sitting at your home. So not necessarily to go out of the country or out of your home, but it is a kind of opportunity for all of you to work from India for anywhere else. So that kind of possibility is there.
Just
So
ensure to take the right visas and go abroad, okay?
So immense possibilities is what you all are ending with, and it's over to you all for questions which you may ask. And this is a very illustrious panel, and they have given me the permission. I'm saying it offhand.
Of course.
And that you can ask them anything, personal to professional, and they will decide whether they answer or not.
Would love to learn from their questions.
Yes, go ahead. And your name, please. Abhilash.
So again, my very personal perspective, Abhilasha, I don't think the so-called COVID batch, quote unquote, is any less than any of the other batches. I think the amount of effort, if nothing else, the resilience that these batches have shown is phenomenal, and resilience is 50%, if not more, of what is required at a workplace, right? So you've already made the cut in terms of being able to add value to the organization. The rest of it is more about letting go of that inhibition and hindrance that you may have, that, oh, I haven't gone through this before. Forget about it, because the organization know that you haven't gone through it. So don't worry. Just be yourself, be open to learning, and be open to hard work, and continue doing the good work. So you already have 50% and more with you in terms of resilience. Huh? Don't worry.
Thank you. Yes, your name first and then the question.
Hi, I'm Rituparna. So the question is, the panel discussed about quality of work and then something called Zoom fatigue. So while the workers are working remotely, how does the organization ensure that they're working as efficiently as they were offline and the quality of work is not compromised? And secondly, when they sign off for, say, the day or the weekend, they are truly disconnecting from the work. How do organizations ensure that?
Can I take that question? Yeah. So the first part of your question was, how does the organization ensure that they're productive? I think we believe in an environment of trust. So there is no need to measure productivity like that, and hence there's no monitoring that at least the organizations I've been associated with does. On the part where you mentioned, how do I actually get to know that they're truly disconnecting, is where I'm worried about. More from a HR professional angle, and because of the responsibilities that we shoulder. So there are a couple of initiatives that we tried, like no meeting Wednesdays. We ensure that there are no meetings at all on Wednesdays. It's a day to allow the employees to sit together, maybe strategize, or if not anything, keep their calendars absolutely free so that they have some time off. And we used to also ensure that no emails are sent between 8 p.m. in the evening to 7 a.m. in the morning, again with an intent of ensuring that the moment you see an email, there's a tendency to respond, and hence that also was taken care of. We also introduced several sessions with our managers to collaborate with the managerial community, and then taught them some basic meetings etiquette as well. You do not set up a meeting first thing on a Monday morning, because it means that the individual has to work over the weekend. We were very close to deliberating options like absolutely banning sending emails, or getting the server itself to catch and not send the email out on those out of office hours. But we did not do that, because it would mean that we are also intruding into the privacy of an individual, right? But as I said, some of these initiatives strongly sent the message that the vision of the organization and the vision of the leadership is to allow for that me time with employees. And the moment that comes from top down, I think it prevails through the organization, and some of these best practices was pretty much welcomed by our employee base. Yeah.
And just to add to what she said, so she's talked about the tech industry. Now in the hardcore brick and mortar companies, it's not that only the workmen came by themselves and worked and went. You had management staff in factories also who had to turn up. Now, how did we go about ensuring? See, and this is something what Shubhra ma'am had mentioned right in the beginning. People take a lot of pride in their work. Let's be very clear on that. Don't try to judge that, or don't try to be suspicious about that. Because the moment you do that, that's when their productivity dips. They love their work, they're very, very honest about their work, and they love to contribute. So how did we engage with them? I remember in the beginning, things were not even available. So we even procured rice for our workmen. And we said that, okay, we are going to give so many kgs of rice per family. Of course, we understood how many members are there in the family. So when you talk about engagement, at that point in time, having a game with them, or those fancy activities was not what's going to help them. What they really wanted was that, are you taking care of me if I fall ill? Yes, we were. And okay, there were certain needs. You're not getting rice there, shops are not getting open. We ensured we procured and got it distributed to them. Now those are the small things that we did. And we say it is small because frankly a lot more could have been done. But did we have the bandwidth to do it? No, we did not have the bandwidth to it. We said we will touch upon those small things which are very, very essential for those people. And that made a big difference to them, because we heard this later on that they would say that, "Saab, wo dusre company mein kuch nahi deta hai." And frankly, we felt very happy, because here are the workmen who are actually appreciating what we've done for them, and they appreciate that. Because in their families, in their local panchayats, they talk about it. Wo company there hai. I hope I've answered your question.
Hello.
This actually happened with me when I was posted in Delhi and COVID just started. We had a lot of bachelors, they were living in 1 BHK or whatever. All this while we had the Swiggy, Zomato and all were serving the food. Lockdown shuru ho gaya abhi, kya kare? And I just shifted from my guest house to a rented apartment, and I called everybody for housewarming ceremony, and that time I had an extra, what do you call, induction. So I told one of my colleagues, आपको चाहिए तो आप ले लो ये, maybe it'll be useful for you. बोले मैं क्या करूँगा लेकर? I'm going to depend on outside food. बोले ले लो चेतन, may be useful for you. I never emphasized that this lockdown is going to happen in March. But somewhere down the line, intuition was telling me, Seema, give it to him, it may be useful. I gave it to him, and lockdown happened. He took the induction from me, but our boy didn't know how to cook. So I went to the role, extending myself, giving them recipes and teaching them on the phone how to cook. To that level, HR had gone. Another guy in Kanpur, he was infected with COVID and was so fed up eating the bland food. He calls up me, ma'am, give me recipe for biryani. Bole, COVID ho gaya, tujhe biryani khani hai.
Back to the basics, right?
So these are the things we had done for our staffs, gone because they were stuck. They didn't know what to do, how to go about. And mind doesn't work when you are in stress mood.
Absolutely.
So, okay, fine. I have to extend my services. I will do that.
Seema, I've heard you about this cooking about 5-6 times.
Please, you're
But
invited.
I have no proof about it yet.
So is the mic with you, Ayush?
Good. The Arsenal fan.
So the social holocaust that is awaiting us, which in the keynote address, right, which Mr. Rajan mentioned. So that's again some evidence for us that the men need to step up and
Upskilling.
Yeah.
Hello.
Knowledge transfer.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Ayush. And first of all, very thank you for the refreshing perspective on this very critical issue. I have two questions, one from Roy sir and one from Ashutosh sir. So during my summers, I interned with the
You're very partial, huh?
So during my summers, I interned with PwC US, and I'm telling this because I'm taking one of your points that the industries where collaborative work is required in large quantity, they should have a physical structure, and the industries where you can work in silos, like you said in your in the earlier part of your speech, they can adopt the digital model. Now, what I saw in this particular industry, the consulting and strategy, which requires a lot of collaborative work, is that a heavy infusion of technological space was there by this company, particular company, and others as well. So my question is that, don't you think that the heavy infusion in the technological digital space can be an answer to the collaboration part of it, with all this apps and softwares popping up every day, which require employees to work together? And so this is my question to you.
Okay. No, let me answer, then you ask him. Otherwise, he'll answer both the questions. Good question. To a large extent, yes. Technology will substitute a lot of things. In fact, technology is already substituting a lot of work which human beings were doing. And even today, what you never thought a machine could do, machines have started to do. So to an extent, you're right in that. But wherever there's, remember, man is a social animal. After a point in time, there is a need to put a name to a face. There's a need to actually interact. There's a need to see the body language up close. If you look at, there's a research done, and I think this research was alluded to by ma'am, by Microsoft, where there are about 31,000 employees across Asia Pacific. The people who wanted to come to work were basically all the youngsters. The older employees were quite happy because they have been working in the office, they're quite happy to sit at home and do, because they could do a lot of other things. But the youngsters had not seen what an office is like. They want to experience that huddle, that conversation around the coffee break. There are a lot of these things that go on to make an office atmosphere. If you worked in the UK, and many of you will work in the UK, no one goes home after work immediately. Everyone hits the pub. The life is centered around the pub, the social life. No one watches a football match at home. It's watched in the pub. So like my eldest son is in France, so all these great football matches, he's not interested in football, but he says, I go to the pub. He says, why? Because my friends are going. So the whole social circuit is around that. So man is a social animal. So while technology will substitute a lot of things, end of the day, certain amount of interaction, certain amount of meeting up with each other will be required. There's a lot more to it than just this simple answer, but then that will take a longer time to explain. But the short and simple one is this. Also remember, when people are going to be, your generation is not going to be clear, not going to be after output, but more outcome. You're going to say, okay, this is my outcome, I'll give you the outcome. Forget about output, how many times I come to work, etc., etc. Or how many times you see my face. I don't want to see your face. But when it comes to assessing, it becomes that much more difficult. There are people who will be coming in the office. They will be seen as far more visible, and therefore an opportunity for them for the next assignment or task, etc. And there is research to also prove that those who stay at home, what happens is that they tend to take up more assignments in order to catch up and say that, look, I'm also relevant. So it's not an easy answer. We don't know how the world is going to really shape up in the next 10 years. Forget the next 2 years. But yes, technology will outpace, technology will substitute a lot of things. And one can only hope it's only for the better.
So Nihal, meanwhile, you think how many more questions will you take? And let us know. Ayush, go ahead. Your next question.
Okay, so the second question, it will be a quick one.
Keep it short, huh?
Yeah. So you talked about value creation on an employee level. So what I'm presuming is that in a digital ecosystem, in a digital atmosphere, it's much easier to maximize or not maximize to measure employee productivity or employee value creation. So if so you talked about that designing any kind of business atmosphere, you are concerned with value creation on a specific employee level. Do you think that the new generation, the digital era of business can aid you in that eventually and more than the physical workspace model?
No, that's what I said at that time also. There is no difference between old or new. There is a purpose. There is a purpose of organization and everybody has to work towards that purpose. And when we are talking about the value creation should be linked with the organizational purpose. That is very important. Correct?
I was talking about like it's easier to measure the value created when you have a digital ecosystem at place because the employee hours, like this is just the starting, you can measure the employee hours plus clicks and everything. So, and it's improving by every single day. So do you think that if you are making a business, establishing a business, then you'll prefer to make a digital ecosystem to measure productivity and value creation at employee level? Or would you choose the older model in which you are physically present to assess that who's doing what?
No, it cannot be one model. We need to see what are the best suited model for that. Like she talked about the trust factor. So trust factor need to be there at all the time. And whether it is a digital or an old way of working, it doesn't matter. So we need to see what is the best suited for the requirement. And value creation is always a must kind of thing.
All right, so we can take one last question. The mic, please. Ayushi.
Hello. Hi, my name is Rama. My question was related to adapting to and getting people to adapt to a hybrid workforce, but with respect to the baby boomers and older millennial cohort. So millennials and Gen Z, which is the cohort I belong to, can easily adapt to the technological implementations. But how did companies take care of their older employees in order to help them feel like they weren't getting left out?
Can I answer that?
Yes.
So if I get your question correctly, there's an assumption that the older employees are not going to be as tech savvy as the younger generation, right? A good assumption, but it may not be always right. But remember, necessity is the mother of invention. And the COVID forced, as Deep mentioned, a lot of old people, this side, not that side, a lot of old people to embrace technology and come up to speed because you had no other option. And none of it is rocket science. When you didn't have that pressure on you, you could afford not to do it. But COVID has taught that you got to do everything yourself. And you learned that. And remember, mankind is very adaptable. You push the person to the wall, they will learn, no matter what happens. So from that perspective, I think when everyone realized, look, I had no other alternative but to do this, people who never went into, digital banking, embraced it. 70-year-olds, 80-year-olds, everyone. They don't go for a checkbook anymore. The people on the road, they're not educated like you and me. The rickshawala, the taxi fellow, the Uber, Ola, all of them, they go for Google Pay or whatever. They're not, they don't need to go for cash anymore. Look at the way how they embraced technology. And was it a rocket science? No, it was not. It's so simple to learn. It's only this, our mindset that, why should I get into that, you know? I'm so comfortable. I don't want to get out of my comfort zone. Pandemic pushed us out of our comfort zone. So we tend to wait. And part of change management is that, you know, you tend to wait till you're pushed to the wall, the burning platform, and then you will change. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Rama. So over to Mihir.
Yeah. So I would like to give my vote of thanks to the participants of the panel. It was truly an insightful discussion. I would now like to invite Madhu Mohan sir on stage to give a token of appreciation to our moderator and panelists.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for joining. I request all the panelists to proceed for refreshments, and batch, please stay back.
So Madhumohan ji decided that one.
Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Check, hello.
Hello. ચાલશે ને હલો મનીષભાઈ વોઇસ ઇઝ ક્લિયર ક્યારે એ લોકોને બોલતા નહીં આવડતું એટલે બીજું કઈ
Hello. Hello. Mas me pidam. तो मीडियम कर दो.
हेलो.
Huh? Sincere.
Good afternoon to one and all present over here. It is my honor to introduce the moderator for the final panel at MI-CONCLAVE 2022, Professor Saurabh Mandya. He has around 14 years of professional experience in the industry and academia. He has been a doctorate in the corporate strategy and policy from IIM Bangalore. Prior to joining MICA, he worked as a faculty in the strategy and the entrepreneurship domain with IIM Raipur, XLRI Jamshedpur, IIM Nagpur. Prior to this, his PhD, he worked as a in corporate organizations like Go Air and Tata Motors. The panel discussion will be on quiet quitting, the next phase of Great Resignation. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. So a very good afternoon once again to all of you, to all my dear students, first years as well as some second years who are around, my faculty and staff colleagues, the invited guests, dignitaries for today, and my co-panelists. It's a great coincidence in a way that we are doing this session as an HR conclave, as a part of the HR conclave, MI-CONCLAVE, just immediately after we have discussed some of the HR topics in the class last week. And trust me, this was not planted by me, okay? Neither that was decided by me, neither this date was decided by me. So it is just a pure coincidence and our privilege, in fact, for all of us, that we will get to hear things, and you've been hearing very great things since morning about various aspects of HR, starting from how to handle millennials, Gen Z, and how to handle hybrid organizations, especially hybrid workforce, hybrid organizations, especially in the current context of post-pandemic. And now we are here for the final session for the day, which talks about quiet quitting, the next phase of the Great Resignation. Of course, though our discussion will revolve around the theme, we will also touch upon a lot of other things which lead into this. And what I understand from my discussions over tea just before the session was that whatever we discussed in the previous two sessions builds nicely to set up this question about what exactly is quiet quitting, how does it impact the various HR processes and leadership processes in an organization, and how do we overcome these challenges. Or we'll hear about some stories and examples from our panelists in terms of overcoming these challenges. So before I hand it over to them, it is my duty to introduce them. But before I introduce them individually, I'll, as I was going through their profiles and try to look at patterns, we always talk about patterns in the class as well, a very interesting thought came to mind that between the three of them, one of them has, or rather, I'll just talk about all three together, some of them have great experience and exposure across domains, across domains and verticals and industries. Some of them have great experience across organizations, 6 to 7 wonderful organizations, and some of them have such experience across geographies. And notwithstanding any of this, as in over and above all of this, they obviously, all three of them being HR leaders, have rich experience in each and every function of HR or human resource management or talent management that we discussed, or that we usually discuss in the classes, in our classes and in our academics. So, I'll start with my extreme right, Mr. Nitin Nahata. It's a pleasure to welcome him here. He's a postgraduate from TIS Mumbai and has worked in various organizations starting with Wipro, HSBC, Stanchart, and moving on to Tata Global Beverages. He was with Udan, and currently he is the CHRO at Gamescraft. He has handled, as I said, all gamuts of HR processes, HR integration, so things that we discuss in the class, right? Then we go next to Mr. Viral Mankodi, who who is a postgraduate from Gujarat University. He specializes in, basically the legal HR, the PMIR side, the personal management and industrial relations, the licensing, talent management, and he has worked for organizations like Torrent Group, for Solaris Biochemicals, for Arvind, as well as currently he is the general manager HR at Astral Pipes, which is an Ahmedabad-based company and has now diversified into other things, other related things as well. And he will bring in some interesting examples from his experiences. He has also been active in the National HRD Network, which is kind of a, the go-to organization for all HR professionals in India. And they have a huge, I would use the word Mela, which is like a huge conference every year, their annual conference, which sees thousands of attendees and participants across the country. It rotates amongst the 30 chapters of the NHRD. So he has been a member secretary for 6 years for the Ahmedabad chapter. And he is also, he's half an academic, so he'll give me competition for my academic concepts. He has, been a visiting faculty in the School of Social Science at Gujarat University, right? So thank you, and yeah. And next we have Dr. Seema Gupta, who is a PhD from Bharatiyar University and an executive MBA from XLRI Jamshedpur. So here we see a lot of connects with XLRI, with Bangalore, and half academics here, so it's going to be a very, I'm looking forward to it. So Dr. Seema Gupta has more than 17 years experience with L&T. She has been with various domains within Larsen & Toubro and handled HR leadership positions in each of these verticals or domains. Currently, she is handling, she is the head of HR for L&T Milcom, and she'll talk more about it. They are the, an important source of supplies to our defense requirements of India. And prior to that, she has also experience in other industries, like, she's dealt with startups, she has dealt with HR consulting. So she is also going to bring in a lot of rich experiences from her 20+ years of career. So by the way, all of them have 20+ or 25+ years. So let us once again welcome all of them. So the format we are going to follow is a slightly open-ended format. So what I will request them is that each one of them, in any sequence they want, can take a few minutes to either correct me if I have gone wrong in any of their introductions, or add a few things if they would like to, and then talk, either bring up any topic of their choice, which will help us then connect to quiet quitting, or they can also talk about some ups and downs in their own careers, which will help us connect back. And once they, each of them takes their turns and uses this few minutes, then probably we'll take the discussion forward with me posing some questions to them. And then once we build on that, we want to leave at least 15-20 minutes towards the end to get questions from all of you, that will be the most interesting part of the session, I believe. Okay, so over to you. Any one of you would like to go first?
Thanks. I think Great Resignation, moonlighting, and quiet quitting, these have been the topics that have been the talk of the town or been spoken as phenomenon for last 1 year. None of them is something that's very new. However, the way they have got pronounced now is pretty strong, and there are a couple of reasons for that. And I think what I really wanted to set as a context is help understand what are some of those events or actions that have happened in the past few years which have really unfolded them into big issues for us. Now, when we start talking about quiet quitting, I think there are two parties involved. One obviously is the employee, and the second is the organization. And I want to talk about from a macro and a micro perspective, because construct becomes very important whenever we want to, generalize a particular phenomenon into a insight or whatever. So today when we talk about a human being, I'll ask you a question. Do you think human beings are rational? No. Great. That answers. Generally, from an economic standpoint, they are, right? Who always want to maximize their gains and minimize their losses, right? And it is applicable everywhere. If you are behaving in a rational manner, you will always ensure that how you get maximum outcome with minimum effort. This is applicable in our personal life, in our professional life, and in any economic decisions or activities that we get involved. And I think I wanted to talk about it because this becomes important, especially when we start talking about how people view employment. Now, second, I'm sure you all would have understood about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, right? Intrinsic motivation is where a person is motivated by self. He doesn't need stimulus or encouragement from outside. He himself will decide how he has to look at it. Whereas extrinsic requires that push for him. Now, while these are some of the constructs that you are learning in OB, they become very important as you try to demystify, quiet quitting. Now, how many of you have heard the Taj 2611 story? It is a Harvard business case, right? What have you studied about it, or what have you read about it? If anyone can. Yeah. Yes, just to correct a bit.
Just to stop it, today is 26/11.
Yes.
Of that incident.
Yeah. So exactly, there were two hotels in Mumbai which were actually being attacked. One was the Oberoi, the other was the Taj. Now, the employees in Oberoi, to save themselves, they went ahead to push the customers to save themselves. whereas in Taj, the employees put their life at risk to save the customers for the hotel. Now, what is something that would have actually led to it? Any answers? Culture, the purpose. So here people were committed to the larger objective of the organization beyond the fact that whether they are getting more money or they are getting more benefits, etc. I think that's the single most thing that becomes very important today when we start talking about commitment from an employee, which is very important given that we work in a world full of ambiguity. Now that's the first point. The second, in last 15 years, you would have seen organizations can today be classified into two. The brick and mortar, sunset or sunrise, right? Traditional MNCs, well established, have been there for quite some time, you know, have clearly identified their business model, are profitable, have metrics that define how effectively they are working, and more importantly, they have industry benchmarks also when we start talking about some of the key matrices, and I'm sure we can talk about when we talk about Lenovo, Astral, etc. What is your cost of production, what is your manpower cost to the revenues, etc. Now these are the organizations which have been there and where you have matrices which will help you understand in case there is some kind of variance or you are seeing some kind of suboptimal performance happening in the organization. But then you have the new set of organizations which also excites a lot of you, which is also called the startup world, right? I myself got excited and I joined Udan in 2019. But these are the businesses which are there to disrupt the market. Their common philosophy is that we are going to disrupt the way business is being done, and hence it's all about getting growth trajectory. I have personally worked with Udan and I've understood that what matters for them is growth, even if it is coming at a cost of profitability or at a cost of burning cash. Now imagine an organization which is trying to grow very fast, which is onboarding employees at a very, very exponential speed, has not been able to assimilate them. You know, they actually throw people at the problem statement and not problem at the people, which means that it leaves no matrix that they're measuring whether people are working effectively, people are not working effectively, giving a lot of room for what we call as a human tendency. If I can get the same by working less, why not? Unless until there is a culture or purpose which is exciting me more than that. Now that comes from a standpoint of an individual, the way organizations have evolved, and the third and the most important element, work from home, hybrid. Believe me, none of it was a choice. It was thrusted upon to us by pandemic, right? And it became the way of life. Now, as you start talking about the young generation, connected generation workforce, they all look at what benefits these companies are giving which my company is not giving. So there's always not only a FOMO in individuals but also in organizations. You know, that company is giving work from home, permanent work from home, I have to give, otherwise I won't be able to attract and retain talent. And many organizations have done that. Now the reason they have done that is just to make sure that they are seen as a preferred employer in the market to hire and retain talent. How effective it is, like in the previous panel discussions we were talking about, hybrid functioning policy has to be more customized to an organization and cannot be universal application. Companies have done that. And when you look at all of these events which may have happened in isolation or interconnected, have made quiet quitting, great resignation, moonlighting as quite evident, you know, challenges that the HR and organizations are facing. Now, when we start talking about it from a macro level factor, it's very important that we also understand why are these problems there and what can organizations do. I think in the previous panels we were talking about what is the right frame of putting a hybrid policy. Is it about work from home, or is it about providing more flexibility to an employee? Now, whatever decision you want to take, I think there are 4 important criteria which become important for an organization. 1, we all know we work in a very ambiguity, right? Pivots, scope of the rules keep on changing, and hence it becomes very important whenever we are talking about hybrid or work from home, it becomes very important that we are able to clearly articulate the scope and what the employee is expected to do. And here when I am talking about, I am not talking about outcomes in terms of project 1, project 2, but what kind of problem statements on focus areas he or she is expected, because that also becomes very important, because today's generation is not interested in someone telling them you have to do this. They want to apply their brain, they need to understand why they are doing, and they feel the need to be empowered. That becomes an important element. Now, how many of you have read about 80-20 rule, right? We all know that all the employees in the organization are not equally productive. People have different priorities. There are people in the organization who want to do that. I will only be happy with getting an average increment and average promotion. I am not the one who wants to become a CEO or a function head in next 10 years, right? They are often called the solid citizens. There are also people who are highly ambitious. How many of you plan to become a CEO in the next 10-15 years? Not many, okay? Realistic? Or
I was hoping all of you will raise your hands.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Huh? So those are the kind of people who want to take that extra effort of trying to do things. Now, manager and leader have an important role in terms of how are they engaging people. So if as a manager and a leader, I'm not able to delegate work according to the preferences, ambition of the people, you will always have a problem where people will be suboptimal. If I'm ambitious, I want to grow, and I'm fast learner, quick deliver, I can do 8 hours job in 4 hours. You're giving time of 4 hours to do something else. Either if I see by putting more effort in the company, I can grow, I will do it. If I'm seeing that even if I'm putting 4 more hours in the company and I will not get any benefit out of it, you start looking at new pastures in terms of moonlighting or in terms of new ventures. As Bhavya was talking about, people made companies and were working for them, etc. So that really becomes an important element, you know. The third most important becomes the impact. You know, when I talk about impact, right, all of you know that if you want to jump from a 50-story building, chances of you being alive are very little, right? Unless until you have a parachute. Guys, I was just trying to engage you guys. Similarly, when we talk about an organization, if organization doesn't have demonstrated precedence in terms of what will happen if a employee is delivering underperformance or is giving extra effort, there is no motivation for someone to actually put an extra effort, and no motivation or no stick for someone to at least deliver what he or she is supposed to deliver, right? That's the third element. And the fourth element, I think, which we also spoke when we were talking about the Taj story, that are you able to connect to the larger purpose? If the foundation of your relationship with an employee is transactional, where you believe that I'll pay him 10 lakh more to get him right now here, and if I don't need, I'll fire him, you are treating employee as a plug and play commoditized resource who is relevant as long as the utility is there. Now, if you have that kind of approach, how can you expect the employee to be over committed, over loyal, and go an extra mile to do something for the organization. Hence, this becomes very important from a cultural standpoint. What are you trying to build? I wanted to give this framework and this perspective because it becomes very important today how companies are looking at it from a standpoint of as they implement hybrid work from home, provide flexibility, because any kind of gap that is there in your ability to manage internal micro and macro factors for an employee and the organization and implement just because others are doing. Believe me, quiet quitting, great resignation or moonlighting will continue to be the problem that will surround those organizations even in the future. With that context, I'll take a pause and give it to my fellow colleagues to share their stories.
Thank you, Nitin. Just a moment. I'll just make a couple of quick comments before we hand it over or invite Mr. Viral. So, so of course the 26/11 context setting was very appropriate on this day. Of course, exactly 14 years to the date, and we all know about those stories, those horror stories, and the aftermaths of that. I almost my heartbeat stopped for a couple of times when you mentioned a couple of things. When he asked you about are human beings rational, and I was like, I hope you guys don't say yes. We have discussed this in the class. I mean, we do this in the class, so you didn't let us down. You didn't let us down. And of course, when he was talking about when I can get more by doing less, why not? Like, of course, he was referring to something. That's not his philosophy. But I was like, I hope you guys don't misinterpret that. We have barely got you out of that. So let's not get back into any of those things. So good, very, very appropriate and very apt context setting, Nitin. Thank you. So I invite Viral to take it forward. There's one thing I'm sorry I forgot to mention in your introduction. So Viral also has an LLB. As I mentioned, he also specializes on the HR legal aspects of it. And in his current role, he, of course, in all three of them, a lot of certifications and qualifications beyond the basic ones. So here you are. Yeah.
Thank you very much. As Mr. Nitin has mentioned, I would like to add on it. Let's understand first quiet quitting or great resignation. What does it mean when we say? Let's understand basic phenomena. It refers that the employees are no more interested to work hard, or maybe they are not in a position to put their serious efforts in completing the task. Very simply, let's make it simple, right? Because the most toughest task given by Mr. Pandya is the last session and almost half hour, 1 hour to go to complete the day, and particularly on a Saturday evening. So what I understand, I would like to give more examples which I have come across in my 30 years of experience in plant level and at corporate level. The more of a low motivation when we speak, let's understand that why people are quitting, why it is so much of hype in great resignation. Resignation is always there and it is part of organization, and it's supposed to be there. So as new blood comes from MICA, new blood comes from XLRI and all premier institutes, which gives new energy to the organization, right? So resignation is a part of life. But why so much of noise? Because of the pandemic has changed the entire situation. In 2 years' time, we all were at home, quietly working, whatever the assignments are there, whether it is domestic, whether it is a personal, professional, whatever it is. But during the pandemic, we have learnt a lot. But post-pandemic, the people have started coming to their workplace. And when they felt that yes, at work from home situation, they were more of a free, they were more autonomy in their balance, work-life balance or a personal, professional life balance. So the motivation went down when they came back. The enthusiasm was not there in terms of their energy into the system, into their task. And because of pandemic, there were some disruption in economy, disruption in industrial environment, and people were not happy with the environment. There were a little bit of dissatisfaction element was there into the organization. parallelly, what I have understood in last 2 years, from say 2021, 22, 2 years time, there was no vacancy, and people were stagnant at one place because of the pandemic. The economy was not booming. So those who got the option, they moved from one organization to another, but it was very low. I have observed in my organization 2 years consecutively, the attrition rate was almost 3 to 4%, and that 3 to 4% was only the migratory employees who came from Delhi, who came from Calcutta. They went back, Odisha and Rajasthan and all these things. Rest, all people, they were stable in the organization. Number two, parallelly after COVID, now since last 7-8 months, the projects are now on, the infrastructure has gone up, the subsidies have increased, the government is pushing all industrial setup, entrepreneurs, giving funds. The banks are now little liberal in terms of giving funds and loans, etc. So the vacancies have opened up, and because of that, people are migrating from one organization to another organization. Now in my organization, recently 3 people from IT department have left. Why? Sir, हमको work from home मिल रहा है. अरे, till 21st of March 2020, we were not aware about what kind of work from home facility. What was it? But now people like to have, like what you are sitting right away, they would like to have their work in a similar fashion while taking cup of coffee, eating wafers, and then they would like to complete their task. Maybe 12 o'clock midnight, or maybe at 2 o'clock midnight and 2 o'clock in the noon also, whatever it is. But the issue was that people have changed their priorities. One of the reasons, according to me, is the people have changed their priorities. Priorities have changed, and because of that, people are started thinking of leaving the organization. Number two, there was a competition. When I say I'm into building construction, now the building construction industries have taken a very, very high speed in terms of their construction activities. People are moving like anything. Though particularly in my area, still the attrition is around 9%, 10% in a single digit. But still, we are facing a lot of concern over the resignations, right? And simultaneously, the overall environment has also given a little boost in creating more opportunities, more kind of technology driven setup and organizations and various systems and processes. Now, would like to give a couple of aspects what employer can do. As we were discussing yesterday also and today, that let's try to give some inputs in terms of how employer is playing a role into this. Now, according to me, I'm playing currently dual role as a HR and as a representative of employer, a dual matrix in terms of responsibility in HR. Now, it is said that if you call any employee, the 80% of their problems get resolved once you hear them, once you listen them. So the first and foremost thing, that being an employer, one should listen to the employer. So as the burnout or the frustration or any kind of anxiety is there, it can be taken out and it can be resolved. Now, Mr. Nitin was mentioning about the flexibility or work from home environment, hybrid. So the employer should also offer certain kind of the flexibility in terms of flexi hours, identifying certain core working hours, say 11 to 4 or 11 to 5, whatever, depending upon the business module. I know when we have started offices in our Mumbai, we have a Mumbai regional office, almost 100 people are there. There were a lot of resistance in starting the Mumbai office. Why? Because there are a lot of concerns during January, February 2022 about the transportation. The transportation was not available, and it was costly affair for each and every person to come in their own vehicle. The public transports were not available. So we started hybrid model. 2 days in a week we have started accommodating people at office and then rest of the days work from home. We have provided the facilities of computers or maybe laptop, and they have given little allowance to meet their expenses in terms of internet or a broadband. So that's how we try to balance and supported the employee. Otherwise, what happened that couple of people have left from Mumbai office saying that it is not possible for me to come and spend some more money. So in order to reduce the resignation, we started this thing. Now another thing is that a more of a multitasking activity which engages people into the organization. Whenever there is a resignation, even in today's scenario, we try to merge two positions into one and give them a more opportunity to take more responsibility, and over a period of time it gets recognized by way of the monetary part or maybe by way of the promotion, etc., etc. So that's how the employer can help in the organization. Now how HR as a individual department, how HR can play a role in this entire aspects is that it is HR duty to understand the performance of the employee. They have to connect with the employees. They have to establish a rapport or a relationship with the head of the department and the team members, so as if any burnout or any frustration is there, immediately we can address all those issues and try to resolve. That's what we do in our company, and my experience says that the more you connect with people, more you at a floor level, the more information you get about the environment, more information you get about the culture or the approach of the people in terms of staying in the organization and their commitment level or maybe their bonding level with the organization. In my organization, I can say proudly that all the head of the departments, those who are at a senior level, they are more than 7-8 years of experience in the organization. Once they join, they don't leave. Why? Because all the seniors, they have a very well connect with the senior management, the top management and the junior management, and they are bridge between two level of management which connects them, which motivates them. Probably I would be one of the youngest in terms of tenure. I have finished almost 6.5 years in Astral. So rest of the people are more than 7 years, 8 years, some of them people are 20-25 years in the organization, and they are still not out. Why? Because they are enjoying their job, because of the connect with the senior management or connect or the responsibility or accountability what they have in the organization. Now another part which is very important is development activity. HR can play a very pivotal role in developing people in terms of their career aspiration. I've seen in my organization, including our nearby society, that the younger generation, 5G, G5 generation, 5G generation, they are very aspirant. They would like to have a very fast pace, fast growth in their career, which is sometimes not possible. It all depends in which circumstances you are into the organization and how the entire atmosphere is conducive and helping you in building your career. So HR will play a very pivotal role in giving them the clear understanding in terms of their job description to their career path. I have prepared a career path for almost 7 to 8 years for any fresher. Those who are coming, I'm not talking about lateral, but those who are fresher, we have a 7 to 8 years path subject to the delivery conditions, because there is no free lunch in this world. So there is a clear-cut metrics from day one during the induction of first week or first month. The new employee is aware about what company is expecting from me and what I am supposed to deliver. And if I deliver, what would be my chances of getting increments or promotions or recognition part. So that's how we develop a mechanism. Since last almost, I would say, 18 months, we have developed our own lab called Astral Lab, Astral Learning Lab. In Astral Learning Lab, we have started 3 level of program. I would like to take a few minutes on this. After the introduction of this learning lab, the attrition has gone down very drastically. today only my L&D manager submitted me report, and out of almost 140 different employees, I'm talking about particularly Ahmedabad head office, out of 140 people, only 4 people have left, and 4 people out of 2, that 2 have migrated from Ahmedabad to any other place because of the transfer of their parents, and 2 have left because of their personal reason. And what we did, we started with the basic understanding, like in manufacturing setup. I'm in the manufacturing setup, so I need to understand the basic of my employees, what they need. They need a very probably you would not agree, but the basic understanding of employees to understand MS Office, or maybe a communication, English communication, which is very important in terms of business processes. So we started with the basic program, and people have enjoyed, and now all people, almost I would say at a operator level, they are talking at least 70-80% in English when there is a need, when there is a presentation or any visitors are into the office particularly. The second part is we have developed the second line and the leadership position. When we have developed second line with a clear-cut understanding of second line, that if you attend this program and over a period of time you would be the candidate for taking over the next role with a promotion or with this much of compensation increase. That's how we have developed and kept people engaged into this great resignation environment. And obviously we'll have to keep people aware about the organization, how organization is growing. Our CAGR is 40% year on year. So that's how we make people understand about their growth, their chances. And since last almost 7-8 months, we have started transferring people from one vertical to another vertical, one product line to another product line. So for that, people are very much enthusiastic, and people are very much interested to take a new challenges. So as people are engaged, connected, and they can take more responsibility on the organization. Now simultaneously, the third part, everything is fine, fair, but as an employee, suppose I would like to leave, but I have to understand couple of things. I should not make the environment negative when I would like to quit. I should quit the organization very gracefully. First, I need to speak to my L+1 manager that, sir, this is the situation, allow me to leave. That's how we can create a bond, or we can have more kind of the synergy between the system and can create a better culture in the organization. The positivity plays a very pivotal role, very vital role when any person is leaving. Otherwise, like including me, or maybe a HR or a organization management will decide, let's relieve him immediately by paying 1 month notice period or whatever it is. So whenever any person quits, he should quit very gracefully. They also need to understand various situation and should be very positive in terms of the what I would say, when they are giving the feedback to their manager about their reasons for leaving. So all these aspects would probably give much more I would say leverage, or maybe we can understand the great resignation or quiet quitting in a better way. So employer, employee, and HR, I think all, if we all understand in a right spirit, then probably we can meet the challenge of the current scenario in terms of great resignations. That's all from my end.
Thank you, Mr. Viral. A couple of very quick comments, before I hand it over to Dr. Seema. So, a couple of very relatable things that he mentioned, which I also could personally relate, was, people leaving just because the other organization is giving you more flexible working hours or work from home. And it's not just true in corporate, it's true in academics as well. And across faculty and staff, we have seen faculty movement to organizations or institutions which have a very flexible working culture, and even work from home in some ways, not really work from, because we can't teach from home, and we did that during pandemic, but that was an exception and hopefully only a one-off exception. but we do require other forms of flexibility, like you rightly said, that maybe some of us like to work late evening hours, late night hours, some of us want to work early morning hours or skip the afternoon hours or whatever. So that seen, but interestingly, during the pandemic or just after the pandemic, we saw this trend even in the academic staff. You know, we had 2-3 resignations in IIM Nagpur where I was previously, where people said they are leaving just because they are getting some slightly higher pay and work from home or something. So that was very relatable. You spoke about the booming construction industry, and you don't have to go far. You just venture out to 3 kilometers to Shela and South Bhopal. You will see a maddening way in which the construction thing is going on. It's a very local ecosystem example there. Of course, thank you for enlightening us with the practices in your HR practices, in your positive HR practices in your own organization, which gave us the other side of the story, that how to avoid great resignations or how to avoid quiet quitting. And finally, you know, wrapping it up with graceful quitting, which is also, you know, very important from both employer and employee perspectives. So with that, we invite Dr. Seema to take it forward.
Yeah, first of all, very good evening to one and all here. Wonderful campus you have, and I thanks MICA to invite me here on this panel. It's quite an exciting topic to talk about. Quiet quitting is not a new topic or anything. It's been there in the industry for quite some time, and it's been there. It will be there. So I also like to thank Nitin and Virat to set the context from the employee's perspective and HR perspective. Now I would like to share my story. Now, when coming to my stories, as a human, as an individual, I also had gone through a lot of ups and downs in my career. I have been in L&T for almost 17 years today, 17.5 years I can say precisely. And in this career of mine, there were many situations which forced me to think, am I in the right job, or am I doing the right thing, or am I getting to my mission, what I want to do in my life. It was not an easy for me to go through 17 years, especially being a woman and especially being a single woman. So my ups and downs were there. There were highs in my life, there were lows in my life. The highs were so high that every year I was getting a promotion. There was a time like that, almost every year. And I remember in 2008 or 9 when we were restructuring L&T. So that point of time, my role was getting diluted. For the sense, I was recruited as a headhunter. And I was not to be told in the world, you're not supposed to say you are a headhunter. So it was a talent acquisition. And this is the first time in L&T they had wanted this position, because the infrastructure business had opened up in 2005. They wanted somebody who can bring in people. And this industry was very, very small, very niche. Construction industry was very niche. And they wanted someone who can, quietly do the work and get all the senior people in place. So that's happened. The restructuring was happening. A lot of things were happening within the organization, so we all were occupied fine. In 2010 or 11, if I remember correctly, I was not that very occupied because of the role has been diluted, because of the infrastructure. I mean, business has been diversified and verticals were formed. Around 9 verticals were formed. So the role of the corporate HR was not like, we were kind of a support system. We were not in the what you call the main line, right? We are like a back-end support. So, and they said you have to be in the corporate center because the role is like that. We cannot take in the business leader. So I said, okay, fine. And none of us had any choice to pick and choose what we wanted to go, where we wanted to go. And somewhere down the line, I always had a passion for training. But I was not allowed to get into training or L&D space because they think you're too good in recruitment, we cannot let you go. But my heart was lying somewhere out there. And I remember Mr. Ganguly saying, if you want, of course, sometimes you can peep in and out in your training space whenever we require your skills and expertise, but you predominantly had to be working in recruitment. And this was a space that's why I got into L&T, because I wanted to get into L&D space, because I'm coming with the HR consulting, was hardcore consulting and recruitment job. And here there was a setback kind of thing. I told, okay, fine, I will continue being a recruiter, but I would be allowed also to be working in that. So that's how my career aspiration was taking care. And as I did my research, I was saying there was a dream for me to do my research on sensitivity training. So they let me do a small bit of research to understand how this training is helping the L&T employees. So that was the first stepping stone to get into my research thing. So that came out very well, the outcome. They said, yes, we should allow people to get into this, continue with the sensitivity training programs. That was the first step. After that, a couple of more research I did. And I remember when I completed my XLRI, I managed to do this again, sensitivity training with some more variables. And again there, it was very exciting and very promising results have come in, and they said, yes, this is a program we should allow again, continue, because constantly there was a checks and balances happening on this program because a lot of money has been spent here. So in 2011, what happened was most of the ICs were settled down because of our support, and they said, now we will come to you only when we want a niche skill. Otherwise, what do I do otherwise? So I'm a kind of person who needs to be constantly challenged. Has to be constantly challenged. I need to be exciting. Something no is not there in my dictionary. And when somebody cannot find someone, they'll come, let's go to Seema, she'll find some way out for us. So I started getting work on project-based recruitment. Kind of, oil, can you imagine oil and water mixing together? Can you imagine oil and water mixing together? As I got a project like that in Qatar, and they said, you're going to recruit people, and I had a time of my life to get people with both the experiences. We managed to get everything in place, but finally what happens, the oil, something went wrong over there in the Middle East, and the entire project was stopped. So wherever niche skills was required, my talent was being used over there. Otherwise, most of the time I didn't have much of work. So in 2011, then my things is, Seema, the time has come for you to do your PhD now. Because this was a dream for me set in 2000 when Dr. PVR, I met him. He let me do the ISABS lab. So in that lab, what happened, I don't know what happened to me. It took me almost a month to come back to my normal. So I know some element over there touched me, and people could see me evolve. She says, no more the same aggression, there's no more the same, some change is happening in her. My people, my colleagues at home, everyone, they could notice this. And I also noticed within myself, some changes happening within me. So I said, Doc, I would like to do a research on this. And the time had come in 2011, I should do my research. So the dream which I set for myself in 2000, I could see that happening in 2011. I got myself registered in Bardar University. I spoke to my senior colleagues, I want to do a research. They allowed me to do that. And finally in 2018, I had completed. But again, the 7-8 years, there were a lot of turmoils happening with my career. And as I said, I used to be constantly challenged. Somewhere in 2016, if I remember correctly, there was this new startup of L&T was coming up. It's called Smart World and Communication. It was something very interesting business in the country itself, because something new was starting in the country. L&T were the first ones, to venture in this business. Before Modi could come up with this dream, okay, we want India to be smart cities. So we had come up with some few of the interesting project, and Ahmedabad was the first project we came with the Sabarmati jail on the safe security. So they wanted a HR person who could set systems and processes. And I was on that, they were not letting me go. I said, we cannot let her go. Because many of them, IC verticals, they wanted me because they were very strong in my recruitment, and the HR, they said, we want her. But the corporate HR were not releasing me. So I was like caught between them, and here my aspiration here. So I had a choice either to quit the company or stay back and fight. I said, I'm not a quitter, so I'm going to stay back. And it took me some time, a lot of patience. I had to handle the senior management and the directors, and I had to explain my aspiration to them. Then finally, they said, okay, fine. And Dr. LRK was there at that point of time in Smart World. I'll find a way out, but you have to support me. I told, okay, fine. I'll let you do what you want to do as far as you fulfill my wish. So we are going to call you as in deputation. This is a secret I'm sharing here. And we want you as a deputation. He spoke to the ICOs of Smart World Communication as well as our construction head. They were going to take her on deputation, and I came in there. Then after 15 days, there is calling back, come back. I said, then I told LRK, they're calling me back, what do I do? I said, do you want to go or not? I said, mujhe nahi jana udhar. No more in corporate HR. I don't want to go. Since just stop answering mails. And after that, they just pulled me from there because I couldn't, I refused to go back. And they're saying, no, she's going to be in Smart World now. Whenever you want help, she's there like, to help you. तो वो मेरा रोटेशन हमेशा चलता रहा कि जहाँ जब चाहिए तो सीमा है हेल्प करने के लिए. So I got into Smart World. Okay, I was there, and again I was happy that I got into L&D space, and they wanted my help in staffing and all that. 6 months happened, and one day what happened? Okay, how long you keep doing strategy? The question came again in my mind.
कब तक strategy करती रहोगी? Even operation, I wanted to know. I wanted to face the ground level. I wanted to face the people out there in the ground, especially in L&T. We are project-based organization, and we have numerous sites. And actually, the work happens in the site in the operation level. Back end में हम लोग strategy बनाते, but the real people are facing the front end. Always had been in the back end. So, and there was always been questioning कि you are getting into a comfort zone. Well, I cannot let this happen now. Not again. So, and LRK was quite freely talking to me since you've been in this organization for quite some time. I'm sure you must be knowing people who like to move to Delhi or Mumbai. They were setting up regional offices or cluster offices. So, you know somebody who like to move in there. So, I said, well, Seema, aapne dance pe chance lo maro abhi. Well, and previous day we had a coffee table session with the CEO. So, every 15 days we had a lot of people coming in because a new startup it was. So, my job was to see to it they meet the CEO. And the CEO said at that time, anybody wants to get transferred to any location, always we are welcome. We will not stop you because we don't want people to leave the job. So this was an open, before pandemic I'm talking about. We opened with relocations and transfers. Now he didn't expect the blue of a night, the HR is going to come and ask him the very next day. So next day this LRK opened this question. I said, okay, fine. I said, okay, if a woman wants to go to Delhi, would you like to, how about that idea? I think which lady on the earth would like to go to Delhi of all the places on the earth? बोले कोई पागल होगा, बोले मैं पागल हूँ मैं. I said, जो पूछ रहा है ना वही पागल है, वो जाना चाहती है. Think, are you sure you want to go? I told, yeah. I told, yes, I want to go. I'm definitely made up my mind, and I don't mind taking up the challenge. And that was my uncomfort zone. And I wanted to get into the uncomfort zone space because enough of sitting in the comfort zone, that was like actually letting me not grow. I wanted to grow. I got that opportunity, and when we spoke to our CEO, saying I didn't expect this coming from HR. I just told yesterday, and HR coming next day and saying we want to get a transfer. I told yes, and this happened. And Delhi was a place 4 years of my life. That was an amazing experience I had, and some of the most finest experience of my life was the Delhi posting. But again, 4 साल हो गए, अब क्या? What's next? So I told again I'm thinking, I don't know, I cannot let it happen. There was some kind of discomfort with the head HR. It was happening for quite some time, and finally I had to approach the board. I had to approach the board of directors, and I have to tell them my story, what I'm going through. And I said, I'm not a quitter, I'm going to quit. At no cost, at any cost. He said, give me some time, I'll come back. And there was a transition happening within the business vertical. We were moving off from one business, we were coming to the defense. That's how we got into the defense segment. And after 8 months, I'm getting a call from the head HR, will you like to head Milcom? The person who wanted to send me out of the organization, the person who wanted to destroy my career, everything possible he wanted to do, he couldn't do anything, not a budge, because I took a back seat. I said, I'm not going to argue with you, I'm not going to fight with you, there's no point hitting my head against a wall. The silence was a big player in my life, and that was louder than the words. And the management comes in. 8 months. I cannot forget the kind of tortures I went through. I was hospitalized, I was pulled out of the hospital, what not happened with me there, but I didn't give up. Why should I quit because somebody doesn't want me, doesn't like my face, or whatever reason it may be? I'm not going to quit. And then I remember in April, I went to, this is a very personal, I went to Vishnu Devi. माँ से मांगा मैंने, आपके ज़िंदगी में एक महिषासुर था, मेरे ज़िंदगी में महिषासुर है. बस आपके छोड़ती हूँ मैं, आपको जो करना है करो. I will listen to you, I'll leave it to you and come back. And I came back. Exactly after 1 month, May 3rd, I became a big fan of hers after that, you know. May 3rd, I'm getting a call. Would you like to head Milcom? The same person who almost destroyed my career. That was the transition happened, and I said immediately yes. They didn't expect me to say yes because I have to leave Delhi, and I didn't want to leave Delhi. But when I heard Milcom, the reason why I took Milcom was defense was my dream. I wish I had a mentor in my life would let me get into defense, but didn't happen at my early career of my life. So when I heard about MILCOM, because in L&T it was not easy for us to get transferred into MILCOM. Any other business is easy, but defense, to get a transfer in defense is not that very easy. And I've been trying for quite a number of years to get a transfer over there, but it was not happening. And when I saw this dream getting realized, I said, yes, I'm taking up, and I felt so proud what work we are doing for the government of India for the defense. I said, yeah, your time has come, you take it up. And that's how I took up MILCOM, and I came to this military communication. And it was wave 2 time. I remember it was much worse than the wave 1 period was. So we were working from home, and even though I was in the same organization, we have not seen each other's face. It was a total different unit. They were totally focused, R&D development center they are. And here at HR, even though we have been in the industry, but not seen. With 2 months, I was like totally on the connect with all my guys over there out in Bangalore. And the HR is sitting in Delhi. So Murli said, how does it matter? As far as you're delivering, that's more important. Deliverables are more important, doesn't matter, not necessarily have to be in face to face. Because your safety is more important to me than anything else. So whenever you feel comfortable, you can come to Bangalore. So that was the understanding he had with me, and that space, the 2 months, I almost every day has to connect with my employees, every single day. It's not one day, and they always surprising, well, HR se phone aa sakta hai kya? Are you sure you're calling from the HR? The first call when I made, then because Usha was getting transferred to technologies, then how do I introduce you to the team? Should I bring in the teams here? I told Usha, don't do that, because I'm sure nobody is going to speak out. So how do I do it? So leave it to me, I'll find a way out. I'll need all the staff data, give me the mobile numbers, everybody, what are the contacts, and let me see how I can connect with them. The first call I made, they got a shock of their life. HR bula rahe, ye to ho hi nahi sakta hai. Yes, HR also connects. Why do you feel the HR cannot connect? And that's how the connection started. And they were waiting for me to come back to Bangalore. When I landed in July 2nd to Bangalore, all were waiting on the ground floor to welcome me. I say, when she can do virtually, connect with everybody, then I'm sure in person how much of work should do. And I have to do a lot of transformation over there. The people were very rigid. They didn't want to approach HR. HR was not approachable, the previous one. But here I have to change the entire systems and the people and everybody. Ki HR is not that what you think. You cannot generalize people. And recently another incident happened when GT joined us. And within a week's time, he's saying, I want to give up. I told, what happened? Why is it you want to give up? It's hardly a week in your organization you are. Why is it you want to give up? He's saying, मुझे कुछ समझ में नहीं आता वो क्या बोल रहा है वो. Because totally into, we are in defense and military communication, the warfare systems and everything. And they have come out from a mode of, the textbooks note. So he was expecting the same kind of a continuity, culture. Because all his peers, they got a professor within the organization who taught them the ABCD of embedded C. Abhi bola mujhe nahi mil raha hai wo, so I'm kind of lost. So then I have to go to the manager and speak to him. He understand the brief. Today they have come from a different mode. They're still in the classroom session they are, so they want something like that. And we also had to explain to the person, Abu his name is, you should be very happy you're working in something which they don't teach in the textbooks. You're working in the warfare systems. So ऐसे करके we kind of trying bridging the gap between the employee and the employee. So this has been my story so far, and I'm thankful that I was in those situations, otherwise I wouldn't have evolved today. Sometimes we think why we got in the situation, we easily give up. The problem is we easily give up when we come in a downturn situation. I said, why do you want to give up? This is time for you to go inward, to understand what you are, where you are. You take a stocks of yourself, and then where do you want to move on with your life? So I have managed to fulfill my dreams because I always thought, let's sit back, understand where you are, now what is the next step, rather than being in a hurry or being in a hasty decision of giving up and resigning. That's not a solution. So many a time the employees want to resign, I'll ask them the question, what is it, the company, is the boss or the money, or what factor is making you take this decision? So wherever possible, we can intervene. I intervene to them and make them rethink on the situation. Why do I want to give up? Maybe getting few thousands more, a few lakhs more. But again, those guys who leave, again they want to come back to us. First of all, why did you leave? Now second, why did you want to come back to the same organization where you served 10, 15 years? So give them a pause. I feel you should give them a pause, let them think. If still they sit down and decided to go, then we'll let them go. In my case, it is easy for me to give up. I said, no, I'm not going to give. Designation doesn't matter. The role is more important. What role you are playing, that is more important. So my colleagues in Chennai were saying, are you going crazy? Are you going to a rape city? I told, what's wrong with you? Delhi is a safe place here. No, this was the exact words they told me, are you going crazy, going to a rape city? People have a misconception about a capital city. Is not at all like that. I was a single woman. I lived over there for 4 years. It's all in the mindset. It can happen to anybody. Why only Delhi? Any place in the earth it can happen. And that gives you the strength and the courage. You can work anywhere provided you have the will and the way to go.
Yes. Absolutely.
Otherwise, if you don't have your internal motivation,
very true.
The first thing would be leave and just do the bare minimum till you find the job. And I think that's one thing that we were talking about. As a HR with employees, if you have someone like Seema with the internal motivation at high level, it becomes far more easier. People who are external, you'll always find a challenge in terms of how do you deal with them.
Great. So can we have a round of applause? No,
and here I'd like to thank my friend Roy, who was in that part of the journey when I was in very low state of my career. And he was there, like, hold on, everything will be all right.
Support, yeah.
It was big support.
Rock solid.
Moral support I had, I would rather say.
And trust me guys, it takes a lot of courage. I've attended like numerous webinars, seminars, conferences, conclaves. It takes a lot of courage for a speaker to stand up and talk about his or her personal experiences, relate it back to the topic and actually have the courage to share it. The bad ones especially, from which you learn and you evolve. The good ones all of us happily share, be it in a class, in a social setting, over dinner. But you know, on a lighter note, when she mentioned about the kind of job that she handles today, and with such confidential and sensitive clients or you know, products, last night over dinner I asked her, did you get permission to come here? You know, the kind of things you handle in your organization will be after you if you go and talk anything about their HR policies or practices. So thank you, Dr. Seema. I'll quickly summarize, or rather not summarize, but take mention my own couple of key takeaways from what you took us through. So, you know, one thing that you mentioned is that because of these experiences that we go through, we are better prepared to face other challenges in life. Also, there are a lot of misconceptions which we fall trap into and let go of opportunities that come to us. It's happened with me, it has happened with others close to me. And one very personal and relatable thing I saw here again was that even the best of bosses or leaders that I have seen or I've heard from my colleagues are ones who do not accept your resignation on the same day. They always tell you to go back and think and come back. If your resignation gets accepted on the same day, I'm not sure if there is something wrong with you, but maybe the other way around. Yeah. So, yeah. So, yeah, and it just amazes me to see the kind of verticals and domains that you have handled in your 17 years in one organization, but handling so many different verticals. Of course, all three of them come with a lot of rich experience. So I have a couple of specific questions before I hand it over to my students for their questions. And maybe in the interest of time, I would request that one of you can take the lead in answering my question, and if others want, they can quickly add a point or two. So one of my questions anyway is already answered when they all related it back to the work from home and the hybrid part. So I have two questions left. One is that we all spoke about both sides of it, you know, what is quiet quitting, great resignations, how do we avoid that, what are the HR practices that can help you. So you see there are three nice perspectives coming together, the organization perspective, the HR perspective, and your own individual or personal perspective. So if you are either strong, internally, intrinsically motivated, then you can handle it. Maybe the HR can play its own role in handling it. But my question is one level before or basic, more basic than that is, as HR leaders, how do you realize, how do you notice the symptoms that this trend is already creeping in your organization or a part of your organization, be it one function, one domain or one level of hierarchy? So how is it that you really notice that in your day-to-day life, work life?
Yeah, I would like to talk about it from two standpoints. One, I think the very purpose an employee is working is that his performance is being recognized and it's been rewarded. And we all know today the performance management system is archaic. It's focusing on what's been assigned rather than what is the reality. So one point would be in terms of how are you removing the dissonance between what you achieve and what are you expected to achieve. And I think the first thing that you end up solving around that, and where I think performance management system plays a very important role, you end up doing, and I think in Gamescraft we have gone away where we say that, okay, one, we don't rate employees. We say that there's a performance trajectory because performance trajectories can always change. And we have divided all the roles across the company into strategy agnostic and strategy impacting. Now, if you have a customer service agent, whether you want, company wants to achieve 100 crore or 200 crore, it doesn't make a difference. He has 8 hours, he can only take n number of calls. Yes. Only focus for him should be whether he is greeting customers, CSAT score are fine, he is resolving the query in the minimum time. So here the focus is on efficiency. Now when we start talking about strategy impacted roles, I am not going to say that, okay, you have to increase your customer acquisition from X to Y. You know the AOP number which is shared with you, you have to decide to achieve there, how are you going. So that thought of ownership empowerment is coming, where you are making people accountable for the delivery rather than telling that, okay, in the month of October I decided that the company has to do 7,000 crore, in the month of December now 7,000 became 9,000 or 6,000, but I failed to update that as a goal. So the constant need for filling and refilling is change, and where you're keeping them updated in the trajectory and you know how you're performing, and it gets aligned to the organizational and functional performance. That's the one thing. Second, how are you managing the perceived equity? Organization, employee, it's never about equity. It's always about perceived equity. The moment you start seeing those murmurs, the moment I see that we both are performing at an equal level, but he's getting a better hike or he's getting promoted, I am not. That's the first thing, why shall I work so much? How are you dealing with these where performance management system and the reward and recognition program, how strategically it's aligned to driving the right behaviors become the most important thing, and these murmurs you start getting to hear the moment any such actions are taken in an organization. Performance review, salary review, these are the first places where you start hearing these murmurs. And how do you manage with them, and how are you managing that perceived equity? And that, I think, HR plays a very important role in terms of managing the entire narrative around communication.
Thank you. Your thoughts on perceived equity really trigger another train of thoughts in my head, and guys will pick it up on this in the class. So Viral or Seema, would you like to add anything to this before I get to my next question?
See, when it comes to this performance is something like, we don't believe in doing end of the year.
Okay.
End of the year we don't believe in it. It is constant review, constant feedback, constant, like it's like on a day-to-day basis. So only then we know that, are we going the right track or not.
Right. So more of continuous monitoring,
yes.
or you can't do a continuous appraisal, I believe, but you can do a continuous monitoring and
yes,
assessment
yes.
at least. Yeah.
So as a HR, I do it very differently. I may not do very officially, like I keep on doing differently, see how people are engaged. Right. Are they engaged or not engaged properly? If you're not engaged, what is the reason? Because I will not go where it's going right, where it's going wrong, I intervene there.
Right. That's nice. Nicely put and very crisply put. Viral, you want to add something?
Yeah, I would like to add into that the employee feedback mechanism would play a very pivotal role in managing the talent or performance management. Why? Because I have experienced that if you speak to your employee informally or formally, you get to know a lot of things about systems and processes, and in currently, today also I am facing one challenge where one leadership, one manager who is at a leadership position is not allowing his sales staff to move around, and the person is frustrated and was about to put his papers, and suddenly just 3 days back I came across during lunch and he was telling, I would like to, Viral, would like to sit with you, and then he opened up. So that kind of feedback mechanism or maybe some sort of repo establishment would help in this context.
Great.
But as Seema was mentioning, I think there are two words with the same Bhaglo or Bhaglo. She has embraced Bhaglo, participate, join. She has embraced the challenges and she has overcome whatever she has faced. So that
why I said that was, if I don't face it up today, tomorrow it will come.
It will come. And you will come in a heavily.
It will come back in a different way, very heavy way.
Heavily.
So I had to sail through this, so I will better sail through this and come out of it, rather than running away from it.
Let us, sail through this positively and not delay it. That's very interesting. And guys, Bhaglo and Bhaglo class ke liye bhi applicable hai, okay?
So in English we can say perform or perish.
Perform or perish, okay.
But this is more relevant. Bhaglo or Bhaglo.
Bhaglo, yeah.
Another learning for me was, see, opportunity comes maybe in blessing in disguise.
Absolutely.
And for me it was blessing in disguise. Maybe it came in this form, but I took it up like, otherwise I would have been like any other person. Bhaglo.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you guys. One quick last question from my side before I hand it over to students is, all of you have played the learning and development head roles, or even as HR head, you are constantly dealing with the problem of, or not the problem, but the situation or the challenge where you are always constantly trying to, provision the budget for the training and development of the people in the organization. And you always face all kinds of people, some who want to go for all sorts of training, some who don't want to go for any kind of training. There are both kinds of people and there are people in between. So how do you handle this in the context of this quiet quitting or resignation? How do you make sure your money is getting invested in the right way?
See, what we did was, we had something called skill matrix, which was falling in defense, but that was half cooked. So when I asked my colleague who was there, the preceder, why are we doing this and how is it going to help us? So she didn't have an answer to that. I told, let me work on this, because this was a fantastic tool to find out individual gaps. It took me some months to complete the entire exercises. So individually, with the managers, we found out individual ka gap kya hai. We gave a scale of rating from 1 to 5. They identified the skill for each, because around 14 to 15 roles we have in Milcom with a staff of around 80 people, which is a small niche group we are. So we cannot afford very high employee strength here. So I told 80 people is a small number. Let me start with this. So every individual, we came out with their gaps. Now with the rating, with the gaps, these are the skills they have to identify. Now we are stuck with the budget. There's a big time problem I was facing. How do I go about? Because the skills are very niche. Secondly, in the market, if I go, is not less than 20, 25 per day, they charge you that much. The skills. So I said, okay, let's find, internally let us find us faculties. So another exercise what I did was, once I identify my skill matrix, second exercise is who are the internal faculties whom I can empanel for the programs to take the thing. So we started like that way. And whatever which was not identified within the company, we had to hire from outside.
Right.
So we also took like online platforms like Udemy, we had Coursera, we had also within the company have ATL and all that. And these are courses which are open anytime for any employees, they can do any given point of time. So you're not binding them, you're not allowed to do training, you can do at your own space. And one was your classroom training, and third was and especially during the lockdown, I remember every Wednesday we have a series, knowledge called Vijnanam sessions. These 2-hour sessions we had, and all about the defense, what we used to work on those areas.
By internal people? Sessions were conducted by internal people?
Yeah.
Nice.
So we balanced our training programs that way, and we also allowed people to do certification. We do that we don't allow. We came up with a policy, if you go certain level of certification with this number of budget, then probably you have a retaining period for them, maybe 1 year, 2 years. Which depend, we leave it to them, it's your choice, we want to go for that.
Thank you.
Similarly, we have the same module, we have a Astral competency module framework for all leadership position, wherein we identify their existing set of skill and what is desired, and we try to give them inputs through various interventions on the job, off the job. We rotate their role and responsibilities, and the return on investment, not in terms of money, but in terms of how fast they are taking the new role, how we are able to create a new leadership position or planning a better succession for those who are going out due to retirement, or maybe how fast we are transferring our knowledge, because in recent past we have acquired a lot of businesses like adhesive business, a faucet business, a bathware and a paint business. So how we are able to take the knowledge fast into our system, and again translating into a more product, more revenue generation, or maybe a more customer base. That would how the L&D plays a role into this.
Sure. Thank you. Can we go to the student questions? Sure. Yeah. Okay. So I request my student coordinators to just moderate the student questions. Let's have at least 2 to 3 good quality questions for the panelists.
Good evening, panelists. It was a great, insightful session. So we have been addressing a number of questions around resignations. Resignations are generally voluntary by employees most of the time. But lately we've been observing a number of layoffs in a couple of industries like tech, edtech. In such a scenario, what should an employee do if he doesn't resign before time?
I think I was talking about the fact that new age startups, you know, the very foundation on which some of these companies have built in terms of scaling up and scaling down is an aftermath in case you have a runway problem or the businesses are not growing. I think the problem is twofold here. One is the problem from the employer side, and I think that's why it becomes very important that what kind of organizations you're working for. I'm sure you don't remember, but when the 2007-2008 financial crisis was hit, before that Tata Group was always being seen as a less attractive proposition because they never paid top of the market salaries, but they were known for giving stable careers and all of that. And that was the first time it hit people that employment is not only about money, it's also about the kind of organization culture and kind of organizational mindset you're working for. That's the first thing which one has to look at it. The second important thing I think becomes very important is that when you ride on a wave of shortage of supply of talent, you end up thinking that okay, 10 lakh will become 20, 20 say I'll get an offer of 40 lakhs. One has to understand that what has happened in that 1 week or 1 month, that your capability has gone from 10 lakh to 40 lakhs. I think my only request would be to think that have you added that kind of capability to you in 6 months that your value has gone? Because when the layoffs happen, you cut the place where you see the least contribution. So I think people end up getting into that problem. Many of the tech people have got into the problem 10 lakh, 40, 60, and they have created their lifestyles like that. And when the layoff is hitting, they are facing that challenge. So I think there is no recipe to that. The only recipe is do the due diligence of the organization from a culture and the foundation business standpoint. Second, look at that, only try to get salary which you think you will be able to justify in a downturn. It's a very important thing, one has to look at it, because what goes very fast comes down very fast. These are the only two things which we can talk about, otherwise it's very difficult.
Very rightly said, Nitin.
Yes.
Grow very fast to come down very fast.
Yes.
So with big money they make, but at the end of the day you face the consequences. Yes. L&T, there's a flip side from the traditional aspect. When layoffs were happening here, we didn't let the employees go. What we did was we were helping them to identify in which of the business vertical you can fit in. So you're not losing a job, maybe you're transferring to another business vertical. So to whatever extent we could help during that pandemic point of time, we did. But yes, we did layoffs for people who were actually retired, were working in the advisory. Okay, you have worked 35, 40 years. Now it's time for you to take a call. For such people, we let them go. But for the contract staff and for other staff, we were trying to find them the other alternatives within the business so that the career can continue, unless it was a call that we had to take.
Good evening, panel. I'm Shubhi Sharma, and I really wanted to know from your side that do you think that degree inflation has an impact on Great Resignation? And if yes, should we be playing less emphasis on degrees and more on the skills of the candidates to be hired?
See, degree is a base, what you call qualification. You require that, no doubt about it. Because without that, of course, you will not have a campus placement or organization, but you have to upskill yourself beyond that. This degree is not sufficient to get you a job.
I think I would like to add to it. If you look at the markets within India and outside India, there's a lot of difference. Every third person here is an MBA. It's a different matter whether they are from a tier 1, tier 2 or tier 3. The point is that outside India, if you go, where hardly people who go for higher education after higher secondary or whatever, the focus is more on getting skills. So I think this is more an Indian contextual problem where degrees become the point, because when you have abundance, you will always try to use that as a filter from a standpoint of whom do you end up hiring. And I think it's more an India specific problem than a global problem in US and London and other markets, because here people, every second person wants to do an MBA or whatever. And I think, as someone rightly said, that with Udemy, Coursera and all of that coming and the executive programs becoming far and far more relevant, I think skills and experience make a difference. Believe me, even you are from IIM Ahmedabad, after 5 years, 3 years, that tag can only get you an entry. After that, it's how you perform. And you will see that sometimes some of the people who are at the top shot may not be from IIMs, but maybe from other organizations. So yes, degree and a brand name does matter for the first year for you to get the entry. After that, it's skill, experience, and how are you growing yourself, updating yourself, upskilling yourself. So
a good combination of both. That's nicely put, Nitin. So it's a good combination of both, and which one works for you at what time, what appropriate time, that is important. And like we discussed in the class as well, you know, when you have abundance, like you rightly said, how do you really use a filtering mechanism, and especially when a lot of HR processes are getting automated these days. So those kind of filters can help us. One last question in the interest of time. Yeah, you want to add something? Sure, sorry.
Let me put it in a way. Let's look at the ASK, attitude, skill and knowledge. The degree gives you the knowledge, but how to implement it? So for learning swimming, you have to jump into the swimming pool, but for that you should have knowledge of how to swim. But skill, then that you have to jump into the swimming pool, and right attitude will take you to the next level. So attitude, skill and knowledge is very important, and no one can work in isolation. Nahi, mera attitude acha hai, I'll be flourishing in my career and in all areas like skill and knowledge. That's what I would like to put it.
Thank you, Viral. So I think
I'm not very sure if this is relevant to this topic what I'm going to talk about. Morning somebody said you should know what you want to do. I think you have said that. I remember sometime during the lockdown time, I was invited with one of the B schools in Bangalore. I don't want to mention the name, all the MBAs. I just, they wanted on career planning. So I was taking a session on career planning. So I asked them, they want to know from organization perspective how the career planning exercise you develop like. I just asked them one question: have you like planned your career? Forget about the organization part perspective about it.
Career,
but have you done it for yourself, the career planning exercise? The first question which I asked. Secondly, I asked them why are you doing MBA? And I was very surprised. It's a very noted B school. None of them had the answer for these questions.
It's very shocking.
You are doing an MBA, you're not sure why you're doing an MBA. Just because for next XYZ person has done, so I want to do. It's a peer competition. So first you make a career planning about yourself. My own self-career planning. Then I talk about the organization planning. So this is what is missing in today's generation.
Clarity of thought and purpose.
Clarity of role, clarity of what I want.
It's very important, yeah.
They're wanting to do what others want, but wanting what I want to do, they're not worried about that. And that's why they land up in the wrong careers.
We've seen so many such examples. You know, we do admission interviews every year, and we have people admitting a lot of things about their choices of undergrad degrees and all, which, you know, we can't get into that. This is not the forum, but you kind of hit the
so these are the
very
reasons
important
why
point.
the quiet quitting happens, because
Yes.
they land up in the wrong career,
Absolutely.
and they land up doing something which he doesn't want to do, and finally it lands up in that thing. This somewhere they all are related to all these things.
Right.
So right from the beginning, if you're clear of what you want to do,
This
then
won't.
this
we
won't
won't
happen.
lead
And
to
I was
this,
very
yeah.
clear of what I want to do in my life. So every time I was fighting for it.
Correct. So guys, what I suggest is, you know, in case you have more questions, you can connect with the panel offline. Immediately after that, we would be anyway hanging around for some time. As a panel moderator, it's also my duty to bring it to a close on time. We are already a couple of minutes over that. So two final thoughts as we close the panel. First of all, you know, thank you for all the wonderful insights and for all the experience sharing that has happened over the last 90 minutes. Students are actually used to 75-minute session. So that, you know, the murmur you heard at 75th minute was probably because of that, but now they're, you know, all fine. You know, we've gone almost 95 minutes, guys. So that's a good. Thank you to all of you for that. Yeah. 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 So, you know, one closing comment is, you know, let's not use quitting as the first or the obvious choice. You know, they said some very nice things about, rather than say quiet quitting, they used adjectives like, you know, quit gracefully or quit strong. So let's believe in that. Let's try to see if there are alternatives before, you know, we just hit the quit button. And one last line from, which is my favorite concept from strategic management is, and it relates to all the stories that they shared, is what we are today. You know, how we think today or what we are today is completely based on the experiences that we have gone through, and that is simply non-substitutable. So thank you all. We bring it close.
Thank you, panel, for such a wonderful session, and special thanks to Dr. Seema for sharing such personal experiences. And on that note, let me mention that it was my absolute privilege to propose a vote of thanks and acknowledge the contribution of those who worked really hard to make this event possible. On behalf of MICA, I extend hearty gratitude to all the panelists who spared time from their busy schedule to grace the occasion. And today we have an opportunity to hear your thoughts, and this will surely help us go a long way in our professional career. Thank you, Batch, for being such great listeners and for making this discussion fruitful with your inputs. I would now like Professor Pandya to present the panelists a little token of appreciation from the college.
Steps. Thank you. For me, internal लोगों के लिए नहीं होना चाहिए. Thank you, guys. Absolutely my privilege and pleasure. Yeah. Birthday gift, huh? Okay. Thanks, guys. Yeah. Again, neither did I decide the date of this session to be on my birthday, neither did I decide my birthday as well. So yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Should we have a quick group photograph? You want to photograph the students also? Something of that sort is possible? Then you have? Okay. Okay.